everybody. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say carpe diem, go after the things that you want in life. And something that I wanted to do this year was to rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, but this time talk about it with other people. And here we are, ready to talk about season 3, episode 5, which was called Yerba Buena. Look, before we get into it, in case you missed it, the last interview that I dropped was with Gabriel Manick, who was one of the Mutiny Coders, seasons 2 and 3. His name was Arky in the show. And we had a lot of that character is a bit different from the other coders and has some different backstory. And so we got a chance to really delve into that and that conversation. And I hope you enjoy it because a lot of really cool stuff came out of it. I feel like the more interviews we do with Mutiny Coders, the more we feel like part of that team. So hopefully that's the same feeling that you're having as you're listening to them. But I hope you enjoy that interview with Gabriel Manick. And today we're talking about, like I said, season 3, episode 5, Yerba Buena. I will explain what that, I guess the dialogue itself explains what that means later on, but just to say it here, Yerba Buena was the original name of the settlement that later became San Francisco. So that's where it gets its name. There's actually at least one other definition of Yerba Buena, but that is what this show means by it. This originally aired on September 13th, 2016. It was directed by Andrew McCarthy, and it was written by Mark Lafferty. And the description here is Cameron and Bosworth head back over to Texas to catch up, while Gordon and Donna spend their 4th of July weekend together. Despite the arrival of some serious news, Joe and Ryan finally made some headway on their situation. Okay. Well, that's the description we're getting. It's one thing that I think is pretty interesting about this, just to say this up front, is that a lot of times the shows you'll get holiday episodes, you'll get Thanksgiving or Christmas, or you'll deal with those in some way. But this show was airing during the summer, or started airing during the summer, pretty much every season. So being able to do a 4th of July episode and have it really feel like it was fitting in that time frame is something that this show got to do that not every show gets to do. Granted, this was actually airing in September, but who knows when they thought it was going to air and what time slot they thought they were going to get. So had it been the seasons prior, it was usually bumped up a bit earlier. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see a 4th of July episode. I don't feel like, I have a lot of shows that I've seen that for. So that's what we're getting for this one. And I also wanted to mention when I was at the ATX festival and when I did my interview with Toby Huss, and I asked him about, what scenes he particularly remembered, what were scenes that he was particularly proud of. And he highlighted this episode. And I think we can guess which scene that he meant when we get there. I certainly have a theory on that. But he had intended, there was a clip that they had wanted to show during the panel. They didn't get a chance to show it. They probably ran out of time for it. But I just wanted to point out that, if you're Toby Huss, this is an episode that means a lot to you. And so maybe that helps us all, appreciate it even a little bit more. Okay, that's all the backstory. Let's get into the scene by scene breakdown with this. So first of all, we're going to start in the mutiny office. I like that this episode begins and not quite ends, but, towards the end, we're going to get this same game that all the coders are playing. One thing that's important to note here is that, okay, yes, the programmers are playing a game. Mutiny team is playing a game, but they're not just doing it. It feels like a very different vibe in that office from what it did in the last episode. So apparently a game of laser tag really turned things around for them because they're smiling with each other. It feels relaxed and friendly. in the office. They feel like they've all gelled, like all of them feel, seem to be included and part of it. And there's a warmth there. It's not like my side, your side, it's integrated now. And so they're playing this game. And, Lev says, dodge them. Bodhi is throwing a football. He says, missile command. Doggett saying, dig, Doug. Yo-Yo, he's eating some Chinese food. He says, Grand Prix, suckers. And they all admire that answer. They're like, ah. So Carl is going to say, Gordon, X to you. Atari 2600 games has to start with the last letter of the previous answer. I like this is exposition, but I like that they started by introducing us to the game, making us be part of the game, and then explaining the game. And they did it in a very efficient way, which I'm very glad about. So now everybody's looking at Gordon, except for Robot, who's catching the football that Bodhi threw. Gordon says, xenophobe. It's like right at his fingertips. And everybody goes, whoa. Love says, wait. There's seriously a game called Xenophobe. Wonder Boy, sweet Wonder Boy is like, yeah, but you're just being intolerant to aliens, so it's cool. Then he gets a little confused by his answer. It's like, is it cool? Is it okay to be intolerant to aliens? So Gordon is going to jump back in. He says, all right, guys, any updates on the bug we've been having with the SWAT confirmations? He has a job to do. He's probably leading one of those team meetings that we love so much that last time didn't go so well, but now may go a little bit better. So Robot says, overhauled and working great. So they don't have bugs in the system anymore. Look at them. Doggett shouts and stands, that's it, Chernobyl boys going to the stocks. Happy 4th of July, asswipe. And he stands up and he throws his chair back up against his desk and he goes up to the whiteboard. The same whiteboard that had that user count that we saw at the beginning of the season where, they were celebrating their milestone now has a wall of shame list on it. And so Bodhi's going to explain this to Gordon. He says, yeah, some 5th grader reneged on a swap for a close encounters lunch pail. And Carl backs it up even further. He says, we're revoking trading privileges for repeat offenders. It's all internal for now, but we're working on putting this into here. And, Gordon comes over to Carl's computer. Bodhi's standing next to them, and they're going to show Gordon Bodhi says, show him the guillotine. And so we're going to see the monitor ourselves, and the graphics feel exactly like the graphics of the games I used to play at this point. So we're going to see 2 avatars on screen and, the structure of the guillotine, and one of them physically crawls in. The other one is sort of the executioner, and he brings it down. He brings down the blade and the head chops off. And so Carl's sitting there smoking. They're watching this thing happen, and Carl and Bodhi are just going to start laughing at it. And Gordon says, okay, so are you dead in mutiny? I mean, are we canceling people's subscriptions? Bodhi says, no, you just wander around without a head, and that lets people know that this guy without a head is a total dick. Don't swap with the headless dickhead. Bodhi just laughs. It's a good idea. Gordon says, yeah, can we get some blood spurting out of the neck hole? I was like, God, how did we not think of that? I mean, leave it to Gordon to up level it, 2 times as fast, half the price. Get the blood spurting out of the neck. Bodhi's like, put that in, dude. Yeah. Gordon says, all right. So that one's done. Gordon says, all right, we've got the solve for the 7-1 cash miss bug in the out of region swap routine. He points to Wonder Boy for that one. Wonder Boy says, tests today, ships tomorrow. Gordon says, you sure? Bodhi's like, Gordon, he says Gordo, because they're very familiar with him. Gordo, relax, swap meets righteous. He gets up, he walks. He and Dave kind of playfully hit each other. Bodhi says the only thing that's sideways is people keep ignoring the no buying stuff rule. Gordon's taking that in. Bodhi says a lot of people are trading for DBs. Of course, Gordo says DBs. Carl says dollar bills. We could technically monitor every trade to make sure it doesn't happen. Gordon says, I can't help you there. That's way above my pay grade. Gordon looks in the direction of Donna's office, doesn't see her. Then he looks in the direction of Cam's office and doesn't see her. Now, we're going to see that they're probably already having this conversation in the basement because that's the next scene. But I guess it's just worth saying, there's a lot of exposition here because obviously the team is catching us up on what we don't know, but what they've been working on. Gordon probably should have known about this stuff already, but they have to catch us up on it all. But I do like it doesn't feel heavy-handed as exposition. It's in the context of showing us that they're playing games with each other, introducing us to this specific game, introducing us to the fact that they have sort of healed their wounds from the last episode, that they're on the same page. These guys are actually saying nice things about swap meat. They feel good about the product. And they're showing us quite a few different things here. But of course, a main feature that they're trying to get across is this idea of, people wanting to get things for money or exchange things for money, which is a structurally different component to what they initially thought this was going to be. And that is a problem that they're trying to solve and decide if it's something that should be part of their program. So with that in mind, let's go into the basement with Cam and Donna. Cam saying, so people are buying shit for money. So what? We knew this would happen. Donna says, it's clunky. Our users want an easy way to buy things and they're frustrated it doesn't exist. Cam says, our users want the police to get back together, but Sting's not interested. Donna's getting excited about it, though. The way she gets excited when there's a good idea that she's fleshing out. She says, Doug and Craig said they can spend the weekend integrating their code for credit card transactions. Cam's like, no. Donna says, they were already in beta when we acquired them. It's basically ready to go. Cam says, because they yanked it off the shelf. It's boilerplate code supplied by the credit card company. They just gave it a little shine job. Donna says, we don't need the perfect solution. If we have to tempt something in now and customize it later, fine. A Band-Aid is better than bleeding to death. Kim's like, bleeding to death? She's giving her that might be an exaggeration look. She's bleeding to death. Donna rolls her eyes a little bit. She's like, swap meat has doubled in size every week since we went live. You're just scared of slowing down. So this company is growing fast, and thank goodness the team is on the same page now because they need to be nimble. There is a certain pressure that you have when things are going well that you don't want them to slow down. I don't know that they necessarily know what it looks like to sustain this pace. But I think there's probably a history of when things slow down, they end. In this part of the country, Silicon Valley, there's probably, previously in the season, they were saying we've got 2 years, you either make it or you don't. So I think they've got this sort of pressure of time and sustaining the popularity and the momentum of their company. Donna says, I don't want to slow our growth. And you keep acting like accepting credit cards is some devil's bargain. They make people's lives easier. That's the whole point. Cam says, okay, Mutiny is a castle. You and I built it, and then we gave a little piece to Diane, and then a little piece to freaking Doug and Craig. But making deals with credit card companies is just lowering the drawbridge. Donna says, what good's a castle if nobody's in the kingdom? Cam looks up and she sort of lunges in a pleading sort of excited lunge to Donna. It's like, hear me. She says, it doubles in size every week, okay? There's a fix for this, I promise. I just don't know what it is yet. Boz shouts down to them. He says, hey, Cam, are you down there? She says, yeah. he comes a little bit down the stairs. He says, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow at 6 a.m. sharp. All right. We got to get to the terminal a little bit early. They always give me shit about the rods in my tailbone. Cam says, okay. Boz runs back upstairs. So I guess Boz and Cam are going on a trip somewhere. They're going to fly somewhere specifically. So Donna says, with a little bit of urgency behind it, when we moved here, we knew there'd be times we'd have to adapt quickly. This is one of those times. Cam says, Donna, we're all alone, okay? There's no other company that's even attempting to do what Swap Meet is doing. Donna wants to protest, but Cam continues. She says, I don't want to rush in and just screw it up all at once. Can we talk about it when I get back Monday? Donna says, we're not going to screw anything. Cam says, Monday. She goes back upstairs. Remember that for later. Monday, important. So Donna, Cam's already left. She's already made this decision. Donna says to herself with a little bit of resignation behind it, like, have a nice trip. So one thing that I wanted to point out about this exchange that they're having is that they have a different maybe philosophy and how they run their business and how they run this business. You know, Donna wants to, she's going to be more opportunistic from a timing standpoint. If something is happening now, she wants to ride that momentum. She wants to make it happen now because happening now means it's relevant right now. Cam doesn't want to rush into things. She's more particular about the beauty of the code, about the things working. This whole debate about whether or not to use code that might have been produced by the credit card companies definitely fits with what I understand about Cam. She's not trying to, bring corporations into their company. She's trying to keep Mutiny special. She's trying to keep it what it is. And so she feels like she needs to fight really hard to maintain that. And, she feels like she has some valid concerns about the type of code that would be incorporated, and she wants to get it right. If they're going to launch a feature, she wants it to be something that is functional, but also theirs. And so these two, which is right, which is wrong. We don't really have any evidence in either direction right now for this company. You could probably look back historically at Silicon Valley and look at, companies and companies getting funding and companies, surviving for more than 2 years. And you could probably find some trends there. I don't know what they are, but we're seeing two different philosophies of how to run this business. Doesn't seem so different from what we've seen from them in the past, but we can see that they're sort of rooted in these stances, and it's about them having conversations with each other and coming up with compromises. And here Cam's saying, we're going to hold off until I come back. So that's really sets us up for where we're going here, but we do need to see a couple other characters first. So Ryan and Joe. At first I wrote, looks like they're in a storage room, but they're in Joe's apartment. There's so much research and stuff everywhere. It feels so unusual for Joe to be to be living in a space that looks like this. But they've been hard at work. They've been really focused on the details, and particularly Ryan has. Ryan is putting up sort of a string map on a cork board. And he looks exhausted. He looks like he has been doing the grind on whatever this thing is for some amount of time. Joe is listening to him intently because Ryan seems to be presenting his findings to Joe for discussion. One thing that I think is kind of cool here is that the light in some shots of this scene, it's like pretty backlit, and it makes them look kind of hazy. They're going to have to come into more and more focus as we go through and as the idea starts to crystallize. But here it's a little bit hazy still. So Ryan is explaining Stanford's over here, right next to Moffett. Over here is Jackboot Central, DOD, NORAD, the NSA. He's pointing to all of these different sort of strings that are held up by thumbtacks. in a very particular pattern and shape. He says, and I printed out all the directories for every mainframe on the network, and we can leverage some of the weak access points I found. Now, the Pentagon is nearly impenetrable, but some of these other guys, like Utah, is totally a sieve. Joe's standing there. He points to one section of the strings. He says, what is this right here? Ryan says, that's not really part of ARPANET. That's just the new network the National Science Foundation just rolled out. Joe moves one of the strings. He says, yeah, NSFNet, Steve Wolf's baby. Ryan says, I went in through Cornell's node. It's only been live for a couple of days. Joe is distracted and he's starting to remove a string, shift things around. Ryan's like, could you not do that? NSFNet's transmission lines are 10 times faster than ARPANET, theoretically. Joe's like, Ryan says, but it keeps crashing. I've been bumped off 6 times in less than an hour. Joe says, what else? Ryan says, seriously, Joe, it's just a bunch of tenure track slapdicks. They can't even get their basic infrastructure right. Joe nods. He keeps adjusting the strings, which is like, Ryan's like, whoa. Ryan says they got grants for the national network, threw a bunch of cash at the local level, and left the regional networks in the middle hanging. Joe says, so? Ryan thinks everything he's saying to Joe is obvious. Ryan has been in the weeds on this, doing research. He's been coming to certain conclusions. He doesn't have experience. Unlike what Joe maybe was hoping when they initially started talking, when Ryan was initially pursuing Joe, Ryan's not necessarily the idea guy. He presented in a pitch in his first episode to Kim and Donna, and he was excited about his ideas there, but they weren't. So there's something to this thing where what Ryan gets excited about, his finger isn't necessarily on the pulse of what's really going to work. He has good ideas, but are they fixes for old things or the big new idea? So he's not particularly practiced at spotting those, or maybe that's just something that's built in. And so he's presenting to Joe like, listen, I've been doing this and I'm here to tell you the stuff you're excited about is not the stuff to be excited about. But Joe sees it all very differently. So he's really poking and prodding. He's gathering information from Ryan here. Ryan says, so there's a huge bottleneck baked in. There's no room for increased demand. So like ARPANET, Joe says, okay, commercial use is banned. He points to this now revised corkboard map, revised by him, as Ryan's been talking. And he says, there could be something here. Ryan's like, it's a lemon. He's gritting his teeth. He says, I have been working on it for 6 weeks. I know. Joe says, well, you know, you've been working on it for 6 weeks. Ryan's so confused. Joe just made the same thing he just said sound horrible. Joe, he turns around, he's processing all of it, just taking in everything Ryan said to him. Joe says, okay, General Atomics left a hole in our balance sheet, $3 million deep. We're hemorrhaging money. ARPANET will be mothballed soon. And NSFNet is the future. That's the story you just told me. Ryan shakes his head. He's like, no, Joe, listen. It's like, I didn't tell you that story. Joe's like, just dig deeper on this. Indulge me. That's all for today. Get some sleep, Ryan. You're starting to miss things. Ryan starts to pack up his stuff. Somebody's at the door. Joe goes to answer the door. And he's surprised by who he sees. There's a man standing there. Joe's like, what are you doing here? This young man about his age. He's looking very serious. He says, I need to talk to you. Joe says, it's not a good time. The man says, now. And he gulps. We've never seen him before. He doesn't even really get a name in this episode. But he's, got some important news for Joe. Ryan is going to walk past them out the door. Joe's like, thank you for today. Ryan leaves, that guy walks in, and Ryan turns back and sees that happen. Okay, so we're certainly getting Joe and Ryan's dynamic here. Ryan has done a ton of information. Joe's doesn't have the idea yet, but it's starting to percolate for him. He's gathering the intel. He feels like there's something to focus on here. He wants to continue down this path. But then this guy shows up at his door, and we've seen this happen before. We saw Simon come in for an episode, and Simon was sick. We're going to find out what the deal is with this man. When Simon came to Joe and said, "I'm sick," regardless of what he was sick with, he wasn't informing Joe because he thought Joe could have whatever he has. He was informing Joe because I think he was making the rounds and saying goodbyes and maybe wanting to do one last project or have another connection with him. But this is a different sort of situation. I think it just got one of the things that's really cool about Joe as a character is that after season one, because season one, Joe is making our core group come together. He is the impetus for that. He sort of loops everybody in. And then after season one, a lot of those folks are staying together, and maybe they'll bring a new character in here or there. But Joe is the one who just every season seems to come out and bring in these new folks, these new people for us to meet and to interact with. Ryan actually started at Mutiny, but is now working with Joe very quickly into us meeting him. But we've got these past love interests that Joe has had that just sort of keep coming in, and it just adds this layer to what sort of the gravity of Joe's life. It just seems like maybe just too many people that he knows that he's spent time with that have been important to him have come to him with terrible news. He's probably seen more sickness and death at his age than you'd want to see, and I think that's a factor for him that doesn't seem to be a factor for everybody else. Obviously, Gordon's living with something horrible, but he's living with it, and he's been managing it. And these other folks, it feels a little bit more dire for them. Okay. So Boz and Cam, let's check out what they're doing. So there's a car driving on a 1 lane in each direction road, 2-lane highway. Rockwall is 6 miles away. They're passing the sign for that. Boz is driving. Cam's in the passenger seat, legs up on the dashboard. Boz says, "I'm just so excited to see this little monkey. I whizzed right past Sonny Bryan's." He laughs. Cam smiles at him. Boz is like, "Hey, when did baby start talking?" Okay, so Boz is going to go visit his grandson. So they are both back in Texas right now. Why is Cam there too? Well, probably has something to do with a conversation that she had with Craig in the last episode. I guess she's going back to check out, whatever's being sold, maybe try to find that bike from her dad. Okay, so they both have a reason to go back. I don't know who exactly proposed this, but they both know why the other one's there. Maybe Boz heard Cam's story and said, "Let's go. Let's just get on a plane and go." So when did baby start talking? Cam's like, "I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months." Boz says his first words are going to be barbecue if I have anything to say about it. He reaches into his shirt pocket. He says, "Check this out." He pulls out the pilot pin, the wings pin, from the flight that they had just been on. And he hands it to Cam. He says, "Remember that stewardess, the one with the legs? She gave me that for Sam." He's a father figure-ish to Cam. So it's funny. I don't know. It's funny that he points out stewardess's legs to her. "She gave me that for Sam. Every time I'd go on a trip when James was young, I'd get one of these." And Cam hands it back to him. And he says he'd pin it to his teddy bear first thing in the morning so he'd know I was home. Kim looks at him with like an appreciation. She says, "That's really sweet, Boz." So before we go on with that, we will see as this episode goes on that a symbol like that, something like that, it's amazing how the giver and the receiver can interpret something so differently. Two people in a situation can look at the exact same thing and take a completely different conclusion away from it. So for Boz, that pin is a symbol that, this is something that I did for my boy. This is a gift I was able to give him. This was me being a good father. And we're going to see later that James has a very different conclusion for that. Okay, so Buzz asks Cam, he says, "So what's the plan? You gonna ship the bike, or are you gonna ride off into the sunset, catch bugs in your teeth on the way back to the bay?" Cam says, "I don't even know if it runs. I'm kind of playing this all by ear." Buzz says, "Well, they know you're back, don't they?" Cam sort of scoffs at that. She says, "No, I'm not going to give my mom time to work up some stupid speech." Buzz says, "You'll be glad you did this." Cam looks at him. He says, "You're doing all right, Cam." He nods at her with approval, with, like affirmation. Cam looks a little bit worried. From everything that we heard in the last episode, well, from what we gather from Len's conversation with her on the phone, and now we're getting this, like, I didn't want her to have time to prepare a stupid speech. So she's given a speech before. I would guess that whatever she did was like habitually hurting Cam, and that she would hurt Cam in some way and then come back and say, "It'll never happen again." Or, like she would explain it away. And Cam learned to trust that that was not going to result in change. I'm throwing a lot of interpretation onto this, but this is what I'm taking away from the elements that they've given us so far. Okay, so now we're going to get Donna and Gordon at home. Gordon he's wearing an outfit fit for camping, and he's packing things up. There's camping gear all over the dining room, all over the table. Donna comes in. She's not in camping gear. She's like, "I'm so sorry. I thought Linda would never leave." Gordon says she was supposed to pick up the kids first thing in the morning. Donna says, "For her, this is first thing. She was telling me about this creepy dad at school that keeps asking her to go boogie boarding in Capitola." Gordon's going through stuff. He's shaking a thermos that sounds like it has metal in it, and he opens it up, and something falls out of it. Donna says, "I think he wants me to be jealous." Donna watches this thing fall out of the thermos. She's like, "I'm not drinking out of that." Gordon holds up the beer bottle cap that came out of the thermos, and he says, "Hey, look at this. Remember that bar we went to in Independence on our way to Onion Valley?" She does remember. He says, "The bartender got us so drunk we had to sleep in the car." Donna's like, "Oh yeah." She laughs with the reminiscing of it all. He says, "Hey, where are the propane canisters?" She says, "I forgot." She grimaces a little bit. She's like, "We can stop by Orchard Supply on the way out." Gordon says, "Nope, Orchard Supply is not going to be open on the 4th. Donna makes a face like, "Oops." Gordon says, "This stupid thing is useless." I don't even know what he's holding. He's got like, I don't know, a rod. He bends it in half. He breaks it. I don't know what it is. Donna says, "Hey, I don't mind sleeping out under the stars. I guess it was a piece of a tent." Gordon says, "Yeah, that's what the rattlesnakes want you to do." He throws down the rods that he's holding. He says, "What's the point of even going? Nothing's working." Donna says, "Well, the kids are gone. We haven't had one night alone since we got to California. We could always, just have a vacation at home." She's just going to throw it out there. She's going to test the waters with that idea. Gordon is emphatic about it. So he says, "You know what? We're staying here." He caves. He's ready to, nothing was working with this 4th of July trip, so why not do a staycation for it? Donna says, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, I'm going to defrost the porterhouses. You can pull out that lacy thing with the straps that I got you for Easter." Donna grins ear to ear. She's like, "I'm going to change into my sweatpants." And she leaves, and he's like, "Horse sweatpants?" So, the plan has changed quite a bit from what it was originally going to be. And that is going to be their 4th of July. But the girls are gone. They've been picked up and they're out of the house. And so the adults have time to do whatever they want to do. All right. In a place where there are still kids in the house, Boz is holding baby Sam in James's kitchen. Boz is instantly in love with this kid. Boz is like, look at this. We got the same hair. He points both his head, like the top of his head and the top of Sam's head, towards the camera. It's a very short hairdo, looking almost bald from the camera's perspective. We got the same hair, Boz says. You see? And then he looks at Cam. He's like, you want to hold him? Cam's like, nope, hard no, hard pass. No, no, no. My taxi is coming, Boz. Boz sings, hold the baby, Cam. And Cam takes it because she has no other thing she can do. And she clearly does not want to be holding this baby. She's so uncomfortable holding this baby. Lisa says, are you sure we can't convince you to stay, Cam? And James is going to come into the house. The James stuff is so is really interesting to me in this episode. It's very subtle, blink you miss it sort of stuff, but it says a lot. So James is going to come in. Boz says, I see the crib got here in one piece. James is like, yeah, a lot of pieces actually. Going to put it together this weekend. Cam tries, so I don't know how long this boxed up crib has been there, but this was apparently the weekend. This is the weekend he's going to do something about it. Cam tries to pass Sam off to James when James comes in, because Cam doesn't want to be holding this baby. But James barely acknowledges this child when he walks into the house. He's grabbing money from his wallet instead. He won't take Sam when Cam offers Sam to him. He doesn't even practically look in his direction. Lisa says, well, Sam's graduating out of his bassinet. Boz is like, already? Precocious little fellow, look at him. Oh, I almost forgot. Lisa is interacting with Sam from across the room while he's in Cam's arms. She's sort of in the kitchen doing stuff. Boz is going to show James that pilot pin, the wing pin. And he's like, do you remember when I used to get these for you? And James is like, yeah, sure do. We're going to find out later he doesn't have the same memory as Boz, but he's polite here. We're going to hear a horn honk. And Cam is saved by the horn. She's going to say, okay, that's me. She's going to pass Sam off to Lisa. And Boz says, all right, see you first thing bright and early. Cam says, congratulations, your baby's really cool. She doesn't know what to do with this kid. She doesn't know what to say about this kid. She doesn't, just don't with the kid. So James goes to kiss Lisa goodbye. Lisa is holding Sam. James kisses Lisa goodbye and still has no interaction with Sam. He's like, I got to get going too. Boz says, I can't believe they're making you work on the 4th. James says, yeah, well, mouths to feed, work's work. Boz says, oh, I know that kind of work. James says, I'll be back soon. Just got to kiss the ring. Sam's complaining and chattering, and Boz is like, all right, you want to talk to Grampy? Come talk to Grampy. And he goes to hold the baby. Boz is in love with this child. You know, as the episode goes on, we've certainly had a sense, and we've heard Boz, you know, if you remember back in season 2, Boz got out of prison and he went to sit outside of James's rehearsal dinner, and he has a whole letter that he has written, and he apologizes for not being there for James on so many important occasions. And, you know, he's apologizing for being an absent father. I don't know. He was he was neglectful in the sense that he dove into work, he prioritized work, and he wasn't there very often for James. And that has, and now we're seeing that when he'd come back, he'd leave these wings pins for James, and that was sort of his "your dad was here" sort of signal. But even from the little bit that we're seeing from James so far, it's like, ooh, he is emulating a lot of what he saw with Boz. A lot of the way that his dad treated him, he is now being that way with Sam. And because even, we can compare it to Lisa's in the same room as James is with Sam and is behaving very differently with this baby. Okay, so we're going to see Ryan walk through the hallway towards Joe's apartment. And he sees that same guy he saw entering yesterday leaving. And Joe is hugging this guy with great emotion. And he's patting him on the shoulder. There's a lot of tenderness here. Ryan's going to stay hidden until that guy leaves. And actually, that guy walks past him on the way out. Ryan knocks on Joe's door, and Joe is a mess. He is all disheveled. It looks like it's been he's just a wreck. It's been a night. Joe's like, it's the 4th of July. Ryan says, right. I mean, you didn't say I had the day off. Joe's like, Ryan, it's the 4th of July. Like, how does Ryan not know about holidays and taking off of work? Ryan says, so do you want me to leave? Which is a yes. I mean, the thing is, like, this is Joe's home. They've been working out of Joe's home. Joe was planning to take off. Joe's at kind of a loss here. He's like, no, he waves him in reluctantly. Ryan is pretty disturbed by all of this. And just also unconventional. Joe says, no, come in. The place is a mess. There's takeout boxes all over the place. There's binders on the sofa. It's just, we're used to seeing things a little tidier with Joe. Joe, he's walking slowly. He's just his hair is all askew. He's very, he's got a ratty t-shirt on or an older t-shirt on. And Ryan has kind of just a look of disgust. He puts his bag down. He sits at the computer at the dining room table. Joe says, coffee? Ryan says, sure. Joe says, kill the computer. You take it black, right? Ryan says, well, cream, lots of sugar, actually. Joe goes to fix the coffee. So, if Ryan's going to be there to work, Joe doesn't want it to be like any other day. He can't. Whatever happened with this other guy, this is not a day for Joe to do normal work. So first, what's happening for Cam? Well, there's a honk of a horn like a truck on the side of the road. We're going to see Cam is at a payphone making a call. She says, oh, hi, it's me. I'm here in Dallas. Yeah, I'm staying at the Motel 6 on, I actually don't know where. There's a Midas and a Whataburger, but okay, I'm here. She hangs up and she covers her face. What has she done? We don't know who she was just talking to. We probably could think that she just spoke to her mom, because that's what she's here for. So that would be the guess, if you're going to make a guess in this moment. Before we find out, we're going to go to the Clark house. The camping gear is all over that dining room table, but they're not doing anything with it. They're making dinner. Donna's cutting vegetables in the kitchen. Gordon comes in from outside. He was grilling, and he says, all right, steaks will be ready in a few. He got those porterhouse steaks defrosted. They're ready to start prepping them. And well, they already prepped them. They're going to eat them soon. Donna says, Gordon grabs a beer from the fridge. He sighs with pleasure. He's like, God, it's unreal. Do you hear that? She says, no. He says, exactly. No modems screeching like a dying hamster. Donna is the way they're positioned now. We're going to see sort of Donna positioned behind Gordon. And so they'll alternate who's in focus. We're going to start with Donna in focus. She says, God, she can be so stubborn. And, you wouldn't think somebody so punk would be so conservative when it comes to business. Gordon goes into focus. He's like, yeah, I was really just talking about the modem. Donna smiles a bit. Gordon says, but sure, I get it. It's stressful, but Cameron's been great for the most part. The kids love her. Of course, I guess that's a mixed bag. I mean, she makes you better, right? Donna stops cutting the vegetables. She says, you know what? I really don't want to talk about work. She stretches. Gordon's like, still wasn't talking about work. Donna walks over. She's sort of playing with her shirt, not quite undoing it, but she's sort of playing with the front of it. And she just gets really close to Gordon. She says, well, I really don't want to talk about Cameron. Gordon is impressed. He sees the signals that Donna's putting out there. He's going to stand up. He's going to put his arms around her. They're going to sort of sway a little bit together. And he says, oh, well, what do you want to talk about? Donna says, I don't really want to talk at all. And they start making it out, and he clears all the camping stuff off the dining room table and he puts her onto it. And yeah, I mean, they're going to have a sexy day. So I guess with this, just to see, like, Gordon's actually making some peace with Cam now. Like, I don't know, they've sort of played duck hunt together. They're bonding a little bit more. He's got patience for her, and Donna currently does not. So for her, it's still very much like this fight about the credit card code and the payment transactions, and Cam saying, you're going to wait until I get back. And this is still sticking in Donna's craw. But Gordon, for him, this is not a factor. This is not an issue. He's not worried about that. All right. Who did Cam call? We are about to get like the most awkward scene in the history of awkward scenes. Okay, so we see the signage for the original Mammy's Kitchen. It's I don't know, it looks like a diner to me. Maybe it's a little more of a restaurant, but it looks like a diner to me. Cam is talking to somebody. We haven't seen who that person is yet. She's wearing kind of a sexy shirt. It's this green shirt. I don't often notice clothing, as you know, but I'm going to comment on this one because I noticed. It's a dark green shirt, looks lovely on her in terms of its coloring. And then it's like a sleeve. Was it sleeveless or just short sleeves? But the big feature is that it has these giant sort of diamond cutouts going all the way down the front. Pretty significant ones, and it's fairly revealing. It looks like Cam was like, what shirt looks sexy that I brought? And that is what she put on. So this is what she's wearing. Could it possibly be her mom that she's actually there with her wearing that shirt? Probably not. So you are already thinking, okay, this is interesting. She's in a diner. It is all decked out with American flags because it's 4th of July weekend. That's one way that they can show that to us. For 4th of July day, whatever day of the week 4th of July is happening on that year. Cam's telling the story. She says, and then we acquired this company, which was insane because our payroll doubled like overnight, which is fine because that's what people say you have to do to be competitive in Silicon Valley. So that's what we did. Now the camera shows us who she's talking to. It's Tom. I enjoy Tom. All right. I enjoy Tom. And I don't know what this scene is, but I enjoy Tom regardless of how awkward this scene is. Okay. She says, but yeah, so the thing that we acquired, it's called Swap Meet. Tom's sort of like not entirely patient for this. He doesn't know what to do with himself. She's like, it started off, she's got him sitting at this table and she's about to tell him the entire story of Swap Meet and Silicon Valley, like where they left things. It's like, are you just why did you call me? It's like, what are we doing at this table? Tom says, I know about swap meet. It's pretty hard to miss because I'm still a subscriber. Cam says, yeah. Tom says, yeah, I actually almost pulled the trigger on a swap for this centipede cabinet. But the shipping from Winnipeg was ridiculous. Cam kind of nods. They don't really know what to say to each other. Tom sees the waitress coming. Okay. It's hard to know exactly what they're thinking because what they're saying is nonsense. Like it's not, it's like sort of, there's no meat on the bones of what they're saying, but there's so much happening behind the surface. So I have a feeling that there's a lot of ways to interpret this scene. I'm going to share some thoughts here, but I absolutely invite your interpretations on what's going on between Tom and Cam in this episode. Tom, for me, I think what I'm seeing is he keeps sort of where they left off. Cam was not able to say I love you. She was choosing work over and over again. She was so emotional about Joe, her ex. There were a lot of red flags for Tom. And at the point when Tom walks away angry, she sold, extract, and defend. He actually called the person who ended up giving her the deal and said, talk to Cam, give her the deal. But Cam couldn't even be transparent enough with Tom where she could have a conversation with him about any of the things that she was doing from a business standpoint. So at the point she finds out that Tom actually basically arranged or facilitated the meeting she had with the person who finally, the only person who was prepared to buy, extract, and defend to keep Mutiny afloat. She wanted to apologize to Tom, but it was too late. Tom's like, what is this relationship? I can't. And he leaves. And she comes to him at the end of the season when they know that they're going to go to California. She brings him that plane ticket. She says, come to California. And he does not. He does not get on the plane. He does not accept the ticket. That is where they left things. But in all of season 3 so far, every single episode, we have seen something to tell us that Cam is still very much thinking about Tom. We saw her very actively go in as the administrator on community or on their network to see if Tom was active, and he was. So we know that she's been checking up on him there. That's a way she can feel connected to him. We have seen in every other episode a moment where Tom got referenced in a meeting and everybody else was like, oh my God, she's thinking about Tom. Oh my God, what do we do? We saw Doug in the previous episode say, what ex-boyfriend did this to you? And we can see her sort of flashback to Tom. So she's had these Tom connections, and now she's sitting in front of Tom. She's obviously never let this go. And she's been sensitive about it, but she doesn't know what to do. She has Tom in front of her. She called Tom, and Tom met her. He's at this table for a reason too. And what he's told us so far, he says, I know about swap meet. It's pretty hard to miss because I'm a subscriber. It's like, I'm still with your company. He didn't say screw Cam, get off, like not be a subscriber with Mutiny anymore. He's still a subscriber for their company. He's still actively logging on. And not only that, he says, I almost pulled the trigger on a swap for this centipede cabinet, her favorite arcade game. That doesn't feel random. Like, why was he getting it? Was it meant to be a gift for her? Was it meant to be a reminder of her connection? Maybe I'm misinterpreting. Maybe there's another thing that centipede could be out there, but I'm interpreting this as part of the game. And so far he tells us 2 things, And both things suggest to me that he also has not let this go. But even though they're sitting at this table, they cannot bridge this divide. So Tom sees the waitress coming. The waitress says, "Can I refill for you all?" Tom's like, "I'm okay, but if you, Cam's like, just the check." The waitress goes away. Cam's looking down. So they've been having this whole conversation about nothing. They've eaten an entire meal and she's still been updating him on swap meet. So now she gets the check and it's sort of like a now or never moment for her, and she can't, and she's looking down. She can't make eye contact with him. Tom sort of jumps in and he eagerly fills the silence. And he says, "Hey, I'm really sorry I didn't reach out. I wanted to write, but Cam sort of blinks. Oh my God, he's going there. He said, "I wanted to write, but I'm not very good with words unless it's like part of a chunk of code. And honestly, I wasn't sure if you wanted to hear from me." Good on Tom. If they're at the point of getting the check, they've been sitting down at this table this whole time. Has she been just regaling him with stories about swap meet and not talking about anything real between them right now? Why are they at this table? Tom finally takes the moment where she doesn't speak to just go, "I'm doing this." And he jumps in. He says, "I wasn't sure if you wanted to hear from me." Cam smiles, but she looks down again. She can't bring herself to be part of this conversation. Tom seems eager. He's like, "It was good to get your call." Damn, Tom. Cam's like, "Yeah, I mean, I didn't come just to see you. I came to grab some stuff from my mom." Tom's trying. She called Tom, she brought him to this place. That is making the first step, but she cannot take the third step. He's taking the second step of like, "Glad you called. I've been on your system. I've been checking out their favorite game, a cabinet for it." Like he's saying, "You called and I am happy to be here." And he's trying to talk about the us of it all. And she comes back with, "It wasn't just about you. I came to grab some stuff from my mom." She nods. He nods. They're nodding. The waitress puts the check on the table. Tom's like, "Well, so you're going to see her. That's great, right?" He's trying. Kim says, "Yeah, well, I mean, she and Len are moving, so just got to get what I came here for." He leans back. It's just like, "Just was in the neighborhood." She says, "Got to get what I came here for and then get the hell out." I don't know. If I had my way, I wouldn't have to see her at all. But Tom says genuinely, "I'm really happy to see you." Oh, Thomas, the red flags have not stopped. I know it's awkward, but they're not like in grade school. It's not like if you ignore him, he should come back to you. You called him. You're in this diner together. He's saying, "I'm glad you called. I'm happy to see you." She's like, "Yeah, you're just here." What? The chick is up, Cam. You called him. Why did you call this man? Like, do you think he had nothing better to do than to hear your stories about swap meet and to hear you say, "I'm not here for you. I'm here for getting stuff from my mom who I'm estranged with and I never," like, stop it. She's so protective. He's really, I think, doing the things he can do to indicate she doesn't need to be. But honestly, like, it's kind of insulting to him the way she's approaching this whole conversation. At some point, you got to get to the next step if you're going to do that at all. And he's giving her some openings. So I don't know about this for him. So Cam's a little bit embarrassed. He says, I'm really happy to see you. She's a little bit embarrassed. She's like, don't, come on. Come on. She's like, you can't mean that. Tom sighs. It's like, oh, damn it. Cam says, I mean, and this is where it gets just remarkably uncomfortable. She slides the check across the table to him. She's like, here, why don't you get this and start working off that plane ticket that you never used? He looks down at it. So it's like, what did she think? What was she looking for here? Was she looking for an apology? Was she looking for a reconnection? For her, she was very hurt that he didn't get on the plane. She felt like she had made an overture to get him to come to California. He had rejected it. Maybe she feels like she's owed an explanation. Him saying, it's great to see you. She's like, come on, like, why are you here? Like maybe she feels like he needs to meet her more than halfway. But this sliding over of the check, he just looks down at it. And she's like, kidding. And she takes it back. Her company's doing very well. We don't really know what the state of the union is for him right now professionally. She takes the check back. She says, it's just a joke. I'll get it. It's like a $3 business expense. I can write it off. It's fine. I mean, you got to backpedal from that somehow, right? I mean, it's just so, if you're him, he had reason not to get on the plane. There were a lot of red flags, even though she did come to him with a big overture. There were red flags, and that is what he was listening to. So for her to come back and say, you've got to work off that plane ticket I bought for you, that's pretty insulting. But he doesn't say anything. It just sort of, that check just sits there on the table. Thank God she takes it back so quickly and backpedals, but it's still weird. Tom says, yeah, okay. His arms are crossed, her arms are crossed. They're fighting themselves so much. He says, thanks. And that, my friends, is Tom and Cam at a diner. It's just, there's so much there. I interpreted that the way I interpreted it, but what did you see in that scene? Because this did not break the ice. Like I guess, is there any way that for a first meeting to break the ice? I don't know. Is that realistic? Do you have to have an awkwardness first and then you go in? Maybe meeting number 2 can be better. I don't know. But boy, was this uncomfortable. All right. Let's go to Joe and Ryan. Joe and Ryan are looking out the big window. They're still inside. They're not on the balcony, but they're looking out at the city. And that "Are you safe" banner is it's still on the building in view from Joe's apartment, but it's started to be replaced. So a little bit of the top is now being like changed over. We don't know what it's going to be yet. So the "Are you safe" is still mostly there. Joe says they quit for the holiday before they finished the new one, but what do you think? What's replacing me? Ryan is seated. He's eating Chinese food. There were takeout containers all over the apartment. So he's picked one up and he's eating it. He says, denture cream, the lottery. Joe is in a robe. He's got no pants. I'm sure he's wearing shorts, but he's just like bare legs and a robe. I mean, Joe is just disheveled. It's a holiday, okay? He's actually now leaning over the balcony. And he says, this city, I can't decide if it's beautiful or horrifying. My mom came out here. She died here. Nothing lasts in this place. The whole city burned down 7 times in the first couple of years of its existence. Even its name has been reinvented. You know what San Francisco used to be called? Ryan says, yeah, Yerba Buena. Pause here for a second. So, okay, this is dark. We don't know what conversation this man had with Joe, this old reconnection had with Joe. But Joe is in a pretty dark place right now. And Ryan's like, what is this darkness? This idea of what's replacing my banner, what's replacing me when I'm gone, what will be there instead of me, who will be the next idea person, who will be the next visionary, who will be on the next cover of Forbes, what's replacing me. And then he's continuing on, like, and meanwhile Ryan's like frivolous things like denture cream and the lottery. Joe is continuing on. He's saying, I can't decide if the city is beautiful or horrifying. My mom came out here. Was she beautiful or horrifying? Were the things that she did beautiful or horrifying? She died here. So his connection to mortality right now is very strong. Nothing lasts in this place, including Joe. The whole city burned down 7 times in the first couple of years of its existence. The city itself doesn't even last. Even its name has been reinvented. It hasn't even been called the same thing all this time. Everything's temporary. Everything is mortal. Nothing stays the same. All of us are just, at some point we will be dust. It's just so dark. So Ryan says, yeah, it's called Yerba Buena. So, when you think, well, Ryan shares his interpretation. He's a glass half full kind of guy. He says, look, that's what makes the city so great. You can screw up, you can fail, and so what? You get another chance. Joe says it's disposable. Ryan says it's exciting because you never know what the hell's next. Joe points to the sign and says denture cream. Ryan chuckles a little bit. Joe says, I'm not sure I've got another next in me. You should know that. And he leaves the balcony and he pats Ryan on the shoulder. And this is all just too dark for Ryan. Okay, so that bit in the beginning when I said like we were looking out the window, the camera was looking out the window and then it joined Joe and Ryan outside. I think when you call this episode Yerba Buena, I like that, the significance of that is clear. It was the old name for San Francisco. But the meaning of what that stands for is different to these two characters. So Yerba Buena, you call this episode that. And is it a sign of hope and exciting and fresh starts and new opportunities? Or is it a sign that everything dies? And, Joe is obviously living that right now, but we just came from this Tom and Cam scene. Is this meeting at the diner the hope of a fresh start, the hope of something new, beginning something new from this place? Or is it dying on the vine? Like, is this a meeting that never should have happened because it's just going to end? This camping trip that Donna and Gordon were supposed to be on, and the way that they're, as we see this episode evolve, the way that their holiday goes, is this the beginning of something or sort of the end of the romance? Because it feels like it could go either way. So the Boz and Cam stuff, like, where's that relationship by the end of this episode? Is it a fight that sort of ends this father-daughter dynamic, or is something new going to bloom out of this? I just think every single relationship, every single pairing of people or grouping of people in this episode, it's like, is it a glass half empty or a glass half full sort of a situation? I love looking at it this way, because we just see it so stark in this conversation between Ryan and Joe. Ryan's like, there's hope. Joe's like, there's none. Yeah. So as this scene ends, we're going to get a pre-lap of the song Train in Vain, Stand By Me by The Clash. We see a record player in the Clark house. Gordon is dancing in a t-shirt and boxers in the living room. He has some kind of rhythm, but I don't know what the rhythm is. Like, his body, different parts of his body are moving at different paces. It's like he's his own drum kit. It's so adorable. Donna comes in. She's wearing a sexy little robe, little satin number. She's like, oh my God, I haven't heard this song in years. She's dancing too. Gordon says, was that totally hot sex worth burning the steaks or what? Because, yeah, the steaks were going to be ready in a few minutes when they went to do it on the dining room table. Donna says, oh God, a billion times yes. She climbs over the sofa to keep walking towards him. He brings her some wine. They toast to the best vacation ever. And then they start to dance with each other, slow dance, and then they dance slower. And Gordon says, I love you. And Donna says, I love you too. And they're so close to each other now. They're going to do it again. So we're going to move off of that scene. It's, I don't know. It's sweet. The kids aren't home. They're doing whatever right now. All right. Boz and Lisa. Things are not so festive at that house right now. So Boz and Lisa are hanging out in the kitchen of James and Lisa's home. They're at this sort of like two-top table up against a wall outside. Their kitchen table is very, very small, I guess. It's just sort of in a longer sort of hallway area. They're sitting underneath the vegetable alphabet picture. Anybody have one of those? Remember those? So it feels like it's late. It is in fact dark outside. They're waiting up for James. And they were just having dessert. And they're sitting together and Boz says, true fact, a banana peel will shine your shoes like no other. She laughs a little bit. He says, save me a mint in my 20s. Lisa says, yeah, I think I read that somewhere. Boz says, you did, huh? Oh, there he is. They hear a car pull up. Boz says, hey to James as James comes in. James says, hey, hi, I got some ribs and hoe cake for you. So was James at work? Or was James at a work social event? Or was James just being social? He says, I got ribs and hoe cake for you. He's holding a paper plate, a greasy paper plate with ribs and a hoe cake. It's not in any way wrapped. He's just been squeezing it to hold it together. He drops it on the table and it's disgusting looking. And Lisa doesn't look particularly happy about this. She doesn't look particularly surprised by it either. James is talking kind of loud. He said, and James is like, and oh, there's some fireworks going on out there that are pretty incredible. James goes toward their bedroom looking for the baby. Boz is like, shh, because the baby has been put down for the night. And James doesn't see Sam in the bedroom. And he is confused. He turns back to them. He's probably been drinking a little bit. He is confused. Lisa says, he's in the nursery. Your dad built the crib. He's been a huge help. Even went out for some diapers. And Boz is kind of proud of this. And James grows cold. He's like, no, I was going to build that crib. Uh-oh. Lisa doesn't want to hear it. She stands up. She says, Sam's going to be up in a couple of hours. I'm going to bed. She walks past James. She touches his arm. She's like, nope. Boz says, well, I think we could all use some sleep. James is like, yeah, okay, Mr. Family Man. Boz looks pretty serious. He says, nobody is blaming you for being gone, James. James says, well, maybe I should have brought home some pilot wings, huh? Maybe that would make up for it. Boz is like, you loved those when you were a kid. And like, you had a whole box of them. James says, yeah, I had a whole box of them because mom was a stewardess. I just tossed the ones you gave me on top. This had been a good memory for Boz, and now it's ripped out from under him because he's like, oh my God, this was not a good memory for James. James says, you can rewrite history to impress your 15-year-old boss, but you don't fool me. James leaves the room. Boz is upset. This is the first time that James has let Boz have it that we've seen. Every time Boz came to him previously, Boz was making amends, and James was willing to be made amends with. And now James has probably had a little bit to drink. He was out at this 4th of July party. And James is in the middle of living in the way that his dad was living. He is, not putting the crib together, and he's not interacting with his kid when he is around, and he's missing putting the kid down for bed, and he's out at work or maybe a social function instead of being with his family. And he's coming back, and he didn't bring in pilot wings, but he did bring ribs and a hoe cake on a paper plate. And like, it's just so much like Boz, and how Boz was with him, and now he's doing that with his kid. And I don't know to what extent he's processed that, but it's pretty easy to see as a viewer that that's happening. And Boz has this like, I get it. And James is like, I don't want to be gotten. Like, he's like, and instead of taking the approach of saying, I'm not like you, he's just going to denigrate Boz. And maybe that's what he's saying to himself as well. I think James has some things to work out here. But also, we have never seen James really confront Boz. And I don't know if that's happened before. But it might not be the worst thing for James to be able to speak these things. Like, oh yeah, you've made yourself feel better by saying you got me these pilot wings. Like, don't even. Maybe James needs to get these things off of his chest. And maybe Boz needs to like come to grips with the fact that he needs, like, yeah, there's still work to be done here with James. So yeah, he was really happy to see his baby, but maybe it's not easy. Maybe it's not so easy to be redeemed. Maybe it's not as easy as showing up at your son's rehearsal dinner and leaving him your car. That's very much like I'm going to bribe you, I'm going to pay you off kind of a thing. He has some reconciling to do with how he treated James in the past, and how James feels about that. And James needs to come to grips with the fact that he's following a similar pattern with his own son. I don't know, this stuff is really interesting, but for Boz, this idea of fatherhood is very tenuous right now. What does it look like to be a good father? Is he being a good father to James? He's making all these steps. He's doing all these things for the family. Is that his attempt to make up for the fact that he wasn't doing those things earlier? I mean, and again, Boz chose to leave Texas to go to San Francisco with Cam. He had a job at James's company. James got that job for him. It was putting Boz on a fast track. It was putting James on a faster track. Boz left that job. He left his son in Texas recently. So I don't know. James harbors some stuff for that. And Boz, there's still some repair to do. And maybe the fact that, James had something to drink tonight is letting him voice some things that he has not been saying. And maybe it needs to be aired. I don't know. There's a lot going on here that was unspoken. And so where they go from here, I don't know. But this is not exactly the happy trip that Boz thought it was going to be. So, all right, we're going to see Donna and Gordon in bed. They've done it again. Gordon's sitting up. Donna's sort of luxuriating, lying down. She's going to grab a joint. They're going to pass it back and forth in this scene. Gordon says, hey, what's that place we used to go eat at down in the South Bay? Donna says, oh, Los Gatos Cafe. He's like, yeah. She says, those eggs Benedict. Gordon says, I'm taking you there tomorrow for brunch. One last hurrah before the crazies return. Donna says, well, we definitely worked up an appetite. God, twice in one day. We should do that more often. Gordon says, twice in 1 week is above average. We haven't had sex twice in one day since Gerald Ford was in office. She's like, that's not true. He says, it's totally true. Pre-kid, do the math, carry the one, Ford. She's like, oh my God, we really needed this. Gordon says, I'm so glad we didn't go camping. She says, really? Yeah. She says, I'm so glad to hear you say that. He says, yeah, well, I mean, we're not as young as we used to be. She says, yeah, but Even then, popping a squat behind a tree in your back kills when you wake up. No, thank you. Everybody's just a little loose tonight, just saying the things that they've been thinking for a while. Gordon's like, wait, she never liked camping? You can see it hitting his thoughts. Like it's all, you can read it all over his face. Gordon says, yeah, but you loved all those times at Mount Tam. And I was like, eh. Gordon says, what? Yosemite was freaking awesome. Don says, you know what it is? It's like that saying about what crazy is, that you do the same thing a ton of times and you're like, this always sucks. Gordon says, that's insanity. Donna points, she's like, yep, that's it. It's doing the same. Gordon says, it's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different results. She points again. She's like, yep, yeah. Camping is insanity. She laughs. She's high. He laughs, but he's not really laughing. Donna's like, oh God, I'm exhausted. He's lost in thought. She turns over, she switches out the light, and he just sits there looking at her. They had this wonderful day, like the most fun day they've had in a long time, possibly since Ford was in office. And then in the middle of that bliss, she's like, yeah, the thing we always did together, that what you thought I enjoyed, yeah, that wasn't real. I was lying about that. That wasn't true. I was faking it. It's like, oh, I think it took this very real day away from him. And it's like, what has been real? What's real? It's like an existential crisis almost kind of thing, where he's like, what is all of this? Like, do we have a solid foundation or not? Like, what do we actually have that we both love? What do we share? This was a reconnection that they really needed, but in the context of that, he got information that made him feel a lot more distant from her. It like took away a lot of his happy memories, sort of like what just happened with Boz and James in its way. It's like, here's what you thought this was. Like, you thought this was, all of these little trips we did were awesome. I was just tolerating them. And he's like, wait, you were just tolerating them? It's a totally new interpretation of a shared event. So I'm just loving all the parallels between the different storylines here. All right, so we're going to see some kids set off fireworks at night. They're run by Cam. Cam's, it's at night. She's walking to the mutiny house. Kids are setting off fireworks. It's the 4th of July. She looks in the front door at the mutiny house. She looks in the window from the porch. She still hears fireworks. She climbs onto the roof, which we've never seen her sit on the roof before. So I kind of like that they give us this new information here in this scene. She pulls a brick from this, like the side of the chimney. There's a loose brick under another brick. The brick says mutiny was here, 84 to 85. Under that is a loose brick that she pulls out, and there's a flask behind it. And she just walks to the edge of the roof and she sits and she drinks as the fireworks explode behind her. So it's like everything old is sort of new again. It's like, here's a place that's familiar to us, but we've never seen it in this context. We haven't seen the roof up close before. We haven't seen her sitting on it. And then it looks like this is something she's done a lot. So it just recontextualizing even memories we're familiar with. Okay. Ryan is going to wake up on the balcony. He's got a blanket over him. I'm guessing he fell asleep and Joe took care of him, put the blanket over him. There are a couple beer bottles on the ground. He goes back into the house. He grabs his bag. He starts to leave. And on his way out, he hears Joe crying in his bedroom. So Ryan sort of looks to see what's happening in Joe's room. Joe is, he's sitting on the bed facing away from the door, so we can't see Ryan. He has no shirt on. He's woken up and he's sobbing. Oh, we have not seen Joe sob like this before. It's terrifying. Joe is beside himself, and he was, he probably would have done this yesterday, except Ryan was there the whole time. Ryan doesn't know what to do and he leaves. It's like an unobserved moment that's been observed. He's like, I cannot interrupt this. And he leaves. He wouldn't know what to say if he did interrupt Joe. Okay, so now we're going to get a close-up of a Harley Davidson, a red Harley Davidson. The camera is going to track up from the bottom of the bike. We're going to see then over and behind the bike, and we see across the street. So it's that the bike is in the yard of the house where it's being sold, but across the street is a car, and Boz and Cam are sitting in that car, sort of staking it out. Boz says, look, if you're not going to eat the rest of the thing, then I want it. So he goes to grab whatever she had. Cam has no appetite right now. He goes to eat whatever she had brought. There's a girl walking away from the house, away from the bike that we can see in the foreground. Boz says, you know how hard it is to get a halfway decent breakfast burrito in the Bay Area? It's a fool's errand. Thank you. He points to the house. He says, it's funny. It's not where I pictured you growing up. Cam shakes her head. She says, I didn't. Boz says, no. So Len and her mom have moved before. Like wherever she grew up isn't even their house. Boz says, no. Okay. So he says, oh, that hombre is back. He brought cash with him. So they've been staking it out, watching people come up to this bike and not walk away from it. But there's a guy who must have come before and he's come back with money. Cam sits up. She takes notice. This is serious now. Time is ticking if she wants this bike. We see the guy talking with a woman, with a blonde woman at the bike. Is that Cam's mom? Is she watching her mom talk to this guy about to sell this bike? Boz says, you gonna do what you came here for or what? Cam says, shh, don't. Boz says, Cameron, I know the first 2,000 miles are easy and the last 20 feet are hard, but you've come all this way and now here we are. Cam says, okay. Her eyes are sort of fixed on this transaction that's happening. And she looks at him really quick while he's talking. And then she looks back. Boz says, you owe this to yourself and to them. Kim's a little bit teary-eyed. She knows she doesn't have it in herself to like go up, and she doesn't want to interact with her mom. She can't get this bike. They're both in the car watching this transaction happening. Boz says, he's very loudly. He says, he's buying your dad's bike, Cameron. Cam says, fine, just stop talking, okay? Boz, this next sequence of motions, they're in such a cramped space. They're both in the front seats, of the car. And the camera is just like squeezing its way in here. It's so tight. It feels like these quarters are way too tight. So after he says, he's buying your dad's bike, Cameron, she says, stop talking, okay? He unhooks in one motion. He leans over, he unhooks her seatbelt, and then he stretches over her and tries to open her door. And she slaps him away. And he says, that's yours. Go get it. Go get it. She slaps his hands away. She keeps the door shut. She says, stop it. What the hell are you doing? Boz says, people don't make mistakes because they don't love you, Cameron. They make mistakes because they do. I don't know to what extent he's saying that because of his own conflict with James versus him imparting a lesson about her mother. But he says that. She says, oh, that's such a crock of shit, even from you. Boz says, you want me to pick up the slack for you again? Great. Why should today be any different, huh? And he goes to open his own door, like unhook his seatbelt and go open his own door. She leans across him and she shuts the door again, his door. So they're very much invading each other's space. And this line from him, you want me to pick up the slack for you again? Great. Why should today be any different? It's like, I went to prison for you, Cam. Gosh. He's never used that against her ever. And I don't know that he is here, but they're in a conflict and words are flying. I I don't know. I think it's breaking his heart that she's gotten this far and she can't get the rest of the way. She can't have this conversation with her mom. She can't get the thing that she really wants. After all this time with his son, James only has now just spoken these words to Boz the night before. And I don't know. Maybe he wants more for Cam and her mom. He wants more for Cam. But maybe he's relating a little bit to her mom now. Boss says, Cameron, you didn't just come here for the bike. Come on now. Cam says, Jesus Christ, listen, you might think you're my father, but you're not, okay? And we hear the sound of the bike engine revving because he's been more taking a fatherly role with her than he ever did with his son. And so even this person, after the conflict he had with James last night, even this person who he's been like a father to, who he's been there for, who he's been supporting, he's been present in her life, even this person is saying, you're not my dad. And so we hear the sound of the bike engine revving. Boz is like, I know that, God damn it. Cam says, no, I don't think you do. We're going to now see this shot. The guy is riding past their car on his bike, on his new bike. Boz looks at her stunned. She's just facing forward. She's so stubborn. She is not reacting. This anger, the memory that comes from this, they went together on this trip to see his grandson, and for her to interact with her mom and to get this bike, and every mission has failed here. And they're saying the most hurtful things to each other. And so she unhooks her seatbelt. She gets out of the car. Boz watches her walk away through the rearview mirror. She's walking with purpose away from this car. He turns the car around, drives, and doesn't stop when he gets to her. He keeps driving past her. And when she sees him keep driving, she slows to a stop. Did she think that he would stop and say, get back in the car, Cam? Like, did she want that? I think she probably did. I don't know. I could be convinced in either direction on this. I think it's a shock to the system that he leaves her standing, like he leaves her walking on her own. Makes sense to me why he did. He doesn't need this right now. Like he's got a lot to process, and these two hurting each other is like a horrible end to a horrible trip. Like it's just not good. She's going to need to do some walking and to think some things off. He's going to need to do some driving and to think about some things. What a heartbreaking scene. I am assuming that this is what Toby Huss was referring to when he talks about, liking this episode and wanting to show some scenes from it at the ATX festival. I'm thinking this was the scene. It's a really powerful scene. For as much as they have said to each other, there's stuff that hasn't been said. And I don't know how much she even means the things she said to him. But it's just the wrong time. Okay. Gordon is putting the camping gear away. It's the next morning. He's been thinking all night about this bomb that Donna dropped on him. I never liked our camping trips, is what she's basically saying to him. He puts the camping gear away. Apparently, camping gear all over the dining room table was not the aphrodisiac he thought it was. He puts all the camping gear away. Nope, don't want to think about this anymore. Don't want to look at this anymore. It's a symbol of fakeness. So he sees the beer bottle cap that had come out of the thermos. He throws it in the garbage. He scrubs a dish. He's cleaning the house. He wants no memories of all those good things. Donna comes into the room in her pretty robe. She sees that everything has been put away. Oh, he's cleaned up. She's like, wow, He says, yeah, I thought I'd get a jump start on the day. She's like, great. So Los Gatos Cafe, really jonesing for that eggs Benedict. Gordon's like, yeah, I don't know. The kids will be home soon. The smile leaves her face. He turns back to look at her, but he's still washing the dish. He says, rain check. She's like, everything all right? He says, yeah, everything's fantastic. He puts the dish away. He dries the dish. He puts it away. He's wiping the counter. He's making himself busy. He says, I'm going to go work on the ham if it's all the same. She's like, oh. He says, get some good ham time in. Donna sort of closes her robe a little bit tighter. She's very uncomfortable now standing there. She says, oh, sure. Gordon says, yeah, he kisses her on the cheek. There's some leftover pizza in the fridge if you want some. Donna is left alone in the kitchen. For her, they just had this wonderful day together. They had sex 2 times in one day. Haven't done that since Ford. They talked about Los Gatos Cafe. She was all excited going to bed. She was high. She said the thing that's been on her mind. She was finally transparent with him about this, like she might not ever have to go camping again after she said that. For her, it was a symbol of progress. And for Gordon, it was a symbol of not progress. Like, wow. And so for her to wake up in the morning and for him to be ice cold like this, having put away all the camping stuff, throwing out the beer bottle cap, that reminded both of them of that place with the great eggs Benedict. It's like, I'm getting rid of my memories of this. It's like he's erasing a part of their life right in front of her. It's just so interesting, this episode, people interpreting the same things totally differently. And it's fair. All these interpretations are correct. All right. Cam has been walking apparently like the whole day because now it's night and she's in a residential area. She walks up to a house that we have seen her at before. She's wearing this shirt. It's a Lad and Lassie preschool t-shirt. All these choices. The day before the day before when she saw Tom, she was in this sexy-ish. It was like a casual but sexy shirt with all those cutouts. Now she's wearing a Lad and Lassie preschool t-shirt that's got just all these ratty holes in it. She goes up to the door of this house. She knocks. She's looking very vulnerable. Who answers the door? It's Tom. And Tom sees that it's Cam, and she looks at him with these very innocent eyes. I have more to say about this, but I'm going to say it in the final scene. Right, let's go to Donna's. Donna's at the office. We see her through the blinds in her office. Her arms are crossed. She's getting really antsy. She goes to the door. She watches for Cam. It's obviously Monday and it's late. Doug and Craig are watching Donna. She walks back into her office. Craig and Doug get up and they come into her office. Craig says, any word from the boss man? Doug says, is she even coming in? It's already noon. Craig says, we're ready to move ahead. Just say the word. Donna says, I have to talk to her first. Doug says, there's a petition up right now on Community. It's called 1986 BC. It demands we let users pay with actual money. Donna sits on the desk. It's all a headache. Doug says, hundreds of people have already signed. Craig says, it was posted 2 hours ago. And I was like, okay, guys. Craig says, one user just emailed me thanking Mutiny for reviving the efficiency and modernity of the barter system. Doug says he signed it Methuselah, a biblical figure. Donna sees Boz enter the office. So he's coming in late. He traveled with Cam. He's coming in at noon. He is walking with purpose. He beelines all the way through the office, doesn't say hi to people. He's going to walk all the way to his office. And Donna's like, just wait, okay? So my answer is the same as it was an hour ago. Take a knee or whatever. She's going to go after Boz. He goes into his office. He slams the door. She's going to open it. She's going to say, how's Texas? Boss says, still big. How was camp? Donna says, didn't go. Boss says, peaches. He's so pissed. This was the worst trip. Donna says, was the plane delayed? He says, got into San Ho 8 a.m. right on time. I just needed a morning, so I took it. Oh my God, the energy. She's not even addressing that. She's like, okay. Boss says, look, I don't know where she is, Donna. She didn't even get on the damn plane. I mean, what hurts Boz more? The conversation they had. What happened with James 2 days ago? The conversation he had with him the next day, or the fact that she didn't get on the plane? Donna's alarmed. She says, you left her in Texas? Boz is like, I'm not her keeper, Donna. Donna says, and you have no idea where she is? Boz says, kid was at a Motel 6 on I-30. Beyond that, like I said, it's one big ass state. Donna leaves. Whoa. Boz, it's like he is a match that can be set off at any time. Like, or that's not the right expression, but he just is, he's sensitive to the touch, this man. She just leaves, probably the right call. Okay, now we're going to see Bodhi and Lev. They're playing with one of those Velcro catcher's mitts from the 80s. I had this. They're just like the mitt with the Velcro on it, and then you throw the tennis ball and it sticks. Anyway, I don't know what the name of this thing is. I just tried looking it up, and all I found was like Reddit threads about people saying like, what was that Velcro catcher mitt thingy? So I don't know. Do you know what it is? All right, so now they're playing this game again. Bodhi says, Night Princess. Carl's like, Spy Hunter. Yo-Yo says, Root Beer Tapper. Everybody's like, what? Wonder Boy says, Gordo, ColecoVision games. Gordon doesn't answer, but he's right by all of them at his desk. Nobody is in a good mood at the office of their leadership today. Julie says, hey, stupid Gordon, your stupid turn. R to you. Gordon's like, pass. Bodhi gathers up the catcher's mitts. He's like, Gordo's in a mood. Dave hangs up the phone that he's talking with somebody on the phone. He hangs it up and he's walking towards Donna. He says, hey, Donna, the guy at the Motel 6 said she checked out. Donna turns to Craig and Doug. She says, how long will it take? Craig says, we can start beta tests internally today. Doug says, be live in under a week. Donna says, all right, do it. Craig says, and Cameron's okay with that? Donna says, Cameron's not here. She'll catch up. Gordon watches as Donna walks away from them, and she sees Gordon. It is so weird in this office. Everybody, none of our leadership is happy right now, but darn it, at least the rest of the team is getting along. All right. Joe, we're in Joe's apartment. Joe is very phased out. He's sitting on the couch. Ryan's trying to talk to him. He's like, Joe, check this out. Something weird going on near Ithaca. Found some code fragments with the same fingerprint as IBM, Kodak, Xerox. Ryan sees that Joe isn't paying attention. He's like, hey, Joe. He gets Joe's attention, just says, yeah. He says, you okay? Joe just nods, which he clearly is not okay. Ryan says, okay, I don't know exactly what we're looking at here. Joe gets up. He walks towards Ryan. He says, but the slapdicks have given way to the big swinging variety, and they're working on something together called Nisernet. That's how I wrote it anyway. Joe says, well, that's interesting. He stands behind Ryan at the computer terminal, and he's sort of just like watching what Ryan's looking at here. Ryan says, it's interesting, yeah, but it doesn't do much to fill the money hole you're so worried about. Joe is just going to give him an affirmation. He says, you're doing great work here. The phone rings. The phone is in sort of the foreground of this shot. It's in focus, and Ryan and Joe are looking at it, but not in focus behind the phone. Joe picks it up. He says, hello. A woman says, may I speak with Joe McMillan? He says, this is he. She says, Mr. McMillan, I'm calling from the San Francisco City Clinic. Is this a good time to discuss your recent visit? Uh-oh. Joe says, hold on a second. He's going to grab Ryan's bag. He's going to hand it very abruptly to Ryan. He says, we're done for the day. Ryan sneers like rudeness, and he leaves. Joe waits for the door to latch behind him. Says, I'm ready. The woman says, Mr. McMillan, I have the results of your HIV antibody test. The camera starts to pull back, and we're going to hear the swell of some music here. It's a song called New Misery. It's quite a lovely song for this moment, actually. We're hearing the voice say, since you were in contact, the music is getting louder. We can't hear the woman's voice. We're just watching Joe as he stands there completely frozen. He gets whatever the message is. He drops the phone from his ear. He walks down very slowly toward the balcony. He's going to drop the phone on the couch. He walks out onto the balcony. It's a sunny day out there. He grips the balcony railing, and we're sitting there thinking, is this guy going to throw himself over it or just like bask in the sun? And we then see him laugh with happiness, with relief. Thank goodness. No words were needed here. All of that fear that he was feeling drops away, and he's just out on the balcony enjoying a sunny day. And that music is still swelling for us. I mean, what a tension that he had. And we feel tense for him because, I mean, whatever made him sob in his bed the day before, he's struggling with something and he can't talk to anybody about it. So, although Joe's ex or whoever he had been with has HIV, and there was a worry that it had, passed to Joe, that grief is still there, but it's not a personal health scare anymore. Okay. This is a really interesting shot coming up. I don't quite know how they did this. We're going to see a camera moving sort of forward in space, and it's going to cut through everything that we're seeing. So it's taking a straight line through desks. We're in the mutiny office. We see the guys smoking. We see people like sort of putting their cigarettes down. Then we're going to see Yo-Yo's desk. He's eating some, he's working. He pulls a disc out of the computer. Then next to him, but still forward moving through the camera, we're going to see a picture of Cam on a milk carton. It says, missing, have you seen me? I remember those. They'd always put the missing children photos on milk cartons. Yo-Yo answers the phone. Then the camera keeps moving. We're going to get to Doggett's desk. And then the camera keeps moving past Doggett's desk. And like, there isn't space between the desks that the camera is moving down. It moves directly over the desks. How it's doing this, I'm not really sure. And then we're going to see behind that, we're going to keep going sort of up into that upper meeting room area. And we see Donna through the window of the conference room area in Boz's office. Pretty cool camera trick here. So now Donna is in a conference with Bodie, Carl, Doug, Craig, Gordon, and Boz. And this is an interesting group. This is, I guess, sort of like the leadership here. All right, so Donna's saying new user signups saw a welcome spike after we integrated Swap Meet, but we're fielding too many complaints about the lack of support for our monetary transactions. So tonight we'll go live with the credit card code that Doug and Craig have been testing all week. All week. Cam has been gone all week. Doug and Craig smile. Cam now walks into the main office area. She sees that there's a meeting happening upstairs. She can see it through the window. Everybody in the main room stops working and they watch her, but she doesn't really address anybody. Well, she says, hey, but she keeps walking because she's walking into that conference room. The guys are like, look who it is. It's Cameron. Cameron's back. The lore is strong now. Okay, so she keeps walking to the upstairs meeting. She's holding a disc in her hand. Donna, in the meeting, hasn't noticed any of this happening yet. She says, when users purchase something, Craig and Doug notice that Cam's walking in. And they look at each other. Cam then opens the door to the meeting as Donna's talking. So Donna's saying when users purchase something, we charge them for the item and we add a small transaction fee, mail checks to the sellers for the sales price. Now Donna sees Cam. She stops. Boz, who's sitting on his desk, he looks at Cam and then looks away. Cam smiles and then loses her smile. She sees the meeting. She sees what's written on the whiteboard. This is the meeting to talk about Doug and Craig's code. By the way, she's wearing her Saigon jacket again, her dad's jacket. So I like this choice. Like she's reconnected to her dad, at least through the jacket. She says, "What's this?" Donna says, "Well, first of all, welcome back. I think I speak for all of us when I say I'm glad you're okay." Cam holds up the disc. She says, "I've been working." Bodhi and Carl now exchange looks. Donna says, "We've all been working." Cam says, "I can see that." Boz is going to walk from his desk further away from Cam to the window. She says, "I have a solve for transactions." She throws the disc on the table, the center of the table that they're all sitting at. They all look at it ominously, like, oh my God, here comes the fight. Donna says, "We've been in beta on a credit card interface all week." Cam says, "Doug and Craig's code." Donna says, "Yeah, it works great." Cam says, "Okay, so you just went ahead and did that without me?" Donna's like, "No." She's like, "Could you all excuse us? Cameron and I need the room, please." What a polite way of saying we have to have it out right now. Everybody clears out. Don't need to tell them twice. Boz closes the door behind them. Cam says, "Okay, hey, so let me see if I've got this." She's looking at the whiteboard. She says, "Okay, so let's say I want to buy, I don't know, a first Superman comic for $100. Donna sits on Boz's desk, taking a position of relative authority in the room. Cam says, "Mutiny charges my Amex, adds $5. Donna says, "As a transaction fee." Cam says, "But Amex takes $3 of those dollars as their transaction fee, so Mutiny is only making $2. Meanwhile, I'm really pissed because yesterday I could have shelled out 100 DBs for that Superman, and today I'm shelling out an extra $5 for nothing." Donna says, "It's not nothing. We're providing a valuable service." Cam says, "Oh, spoken like a true middleman." They both have their arms crossed here. Unfortunately, they just got down to business, but they might have needed to have some apologies go across here. So Donna says, "Okay, what's your solution?" Cam says, "Routing numbers. It's how the banks move money, and our subscribers pay by checks, so their account numbers are already on file." Donna needs more information. Cam says, "Okay, you sell me Superman. Mutiny pulls funds directly from my bank and deposits them into your account using our own ABA routing number as a pipeline. Oh, and it's basically free because we don't incur a transaction fee, and we don't charge one either because our expenses haven't skyrocketed. But then with your way, we need 3 people handling credit card transactions, a few people to handle check writing and mailing, probably an accountant or two. So that's 12 new hires." Donna's just sort of swallowing all of this. Donna's like, "Yeah, that's about right." Cam says, "Well, my way adds 1 person. 1. Donna's appalled at all this. She's like, "I can't believe you." Cam might have been more productive here if she had started with an apology, an explanation of where she was, but instead she's like, "Your ideas are crap." Donna's like, "But I've been here." I get it. I get it from Donna's standpoint. Donna says, "I can't believe you." Cam says, "Right back at you. We agreed to discuss this when I got back." Donna says, "We agreed to discuss this on Monday. It is Friday. Where have you been?" "Correct." Cam said Monday. Cam says, "Who cares? I'm here now. Since when do you make decisions for my company without consulting me?" Oh my God. Everybody's so sensitive in this entire episode that no conversation is ever going to go right. Right? Like it's so painful to watch this episode. Nobody can get along. Okay. Donna says, "God damn it. I tried to consult you and I couldn't find you." Cam says, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I've been worried about." I was like, "What?" Cam says, "Every new person that walks through the door, another piece of mutiny gets cut away from me." Donna cannot believe this conversation. She's like, no, Donna, mutiny isn't just my job. It's who I am." Donna says, "It's who I am too." The camera starts watching them from outside the window for a moment and then goes back into the room. Donna says, I couldn't sleep all week. I couldn't ignore the mountain of complaints in my inbox, but I care too much. Cam says, I came up with a better solution. Donna says, just because you think you need to sprinkle your fairy dust over everything around here before you feel satisfied doesn't mean it's better. Cam says quietly, but with certainty, it is better. Oh God. She's breathing very deeply. It's very labored. She's backed up against a wall. It feels like there's another panic attack almost starting to brew. And Donna, I think, senses this and sort of reins herself in a little bit. She says, okay, but that's not the point. We were in real trouble. And when I'm in trouble and I look around, I need to find you there. We need to have each other's backs. Kim says, sometimes I need to crawl into a hole just to find my head. Now look, this is not an apology yet, but Donna can start to move into compassionate Donna mode, which is what she's inclined to do. So she rolls her eyes a little bit. She's like, yeah, okay, I've got to give her an inch here. Cam says, I know you're patient with me even when I drag my feet. I know I should find my own place to live and stop imposing on you guys. And I know that dinner with Doug and Craig that I missed, you probably didn't think we should fire them. Donna looks very serious when she says that. She says, but you went to bat for me anyways with Diane. I know that. Cam closes her eyes and she makes a reveal. She's offering something to Donna. She says, I was with Tom. Okay, that's where I was. Donna's tearing up a little bit. She says very softly, yeah, I was wondering. Still, you should have called. Cam nods. She says, he said you're the best thing that ever happened to me. And it's true. And it's not because he said it or anything, just you anchor me. She turns those big blue Mackenzie Davis eyes to Donna. How can Donna not accept this? I mean, she can't. So Donna sits, she's like, well, I guess we're a bank now. That's pretty cool, huh? Kim smiles because this apology appears to be accepted. Kim's like, it's a routing number. We're not giving away free toasters or anything. I do have your back, Donna. I have a weird way of showing it, but I swear I do. Donna says, I have yours. Cam extends her hand to shake Donna's hand. Donna shakes it and then pulls Cam in and they hug. This hug reminds me of the hug from season 2 where actually every Tom and Cam hug that's about Tom comforting Cam and not them about to have sex. Donna pulls Cam in for a hug and Cam's arms are straight down. Donna's like enveloped her and Cam's arms are down and she's just like slumped and leaning against Donna. I worry about where Cam is right now. You know, like she spent several extra days in Texas with Cam. She's doing this apology. She's being, it would have been nice if she started with the apology instead of starting with the business stuff, but she got there fairly quickly. But she can't, she's trying to make peace with Donna, but she's very much leaning on Donna right now. It's not a mutual hug. It's like, please hug me. I don't know with Cam here. I think everybody needs a hug. Everybody needs a hug in this episode. Okay. Let's go back to Joe. Joe is with Ryan. Now he's ready to be productive again. He is doing an extreme close-up to the cork board with all of those strings on it. And different parts of the string map come into focus. He's tracing one of the strings with his finger, and then he pulls out a whole section of strings, and he leaves only a handful of red strings on the board. Joe says, this and only this is what we focus on. Ryan was reading on the couch and he sits up. Okay, movement finally, right? Joe's doing something. Ryan says, okay, yeah, time out. This is super cool to me, but only NSFNet. The yarn you just pulled, those are the deep pockets. He does not see Joe's vision here. NSFNet, by the way, just to clarify this. So National Science Foundation Network that was mentioned earlier in the episode. Here's what this was. NSFNet was the backbone of the early internet. As the first network available to every researcher, NSFNet became the de facto US internet backbone, connecting around 2,000 computers in 1986 and expanding to more than 2 million by 1993. NSFNet laid the foundation for the internet's explosive worldwide growth in the 1990s. So if you just look up what NSFNet was, we can see that the conversation that's about to happen between Joe and Ryan is a very good guess. There is growth coming for NSFNet. All right. So Ryan's like, the deep pockets are elsewhere. Joe says, exactly, it's virgin territory. He points, he says, Wolf created a bottleneck, right? Ryan says, yeah, but it's supported by regional networks. The guy is insane. Joe says, the guy is brilliant. He's sending a signal. He's like our Gorbachev. Ryan snickers. Joe's like, do you know what glasnost is? Ryan says, I want to say either vodka or a satellite. Joe says, Wolf knows the only way his network will grow is if private money gets in the game. The problem is that that's against the law for now. But Ryan says, maybe one day it won't be. He's starting to get it. Joe says, and when the rules change, people are going to flood in. Average people at home on their Apple IIe and Amiga, and it's going to overload the system. So who breaks the bottleneck? Ryan throws down the book he is reading. Eureka! He stands. He gets it. He climbs over the couch to join Joe looking at this corkboard. So now there's some movement happening here. They're together. Joe says, we're going to create a regional network right there. And he points, Joe joins Ryan. They're both sitting on the back of the couch. He says, the past is a bunch of fortresses all closed off from the rest of the world. We don't have to build a faster computer or dream up the next killer application. That's what you do in a fortress. He goes up to the board. Now he's moving towards the board again. There's so much movement happening now and energy between them. He says, we're going to pave a road between them. Ryan says, and you're going to ask the board to go deeper in the hole on something that may never turn a dime. Joe says, I don't care what the board thinks. Money is just a side effect. Glasnost, it means openness, and it's always a bad idea to bet against openness. Ryan kind of cocks his head. Joe says, are you hungry? Ryan says, I don't know, Joe. Joe says, you don't know if you're hungry? Ryan says, I don't even know what to think anymore. I try to decipher your sayings, but then the phone rings and you boot me to another zip code, and we still haven't figured out how to make any money. And I go home every day and I'm spinning and I don't even know if you like me. I feel crazy. It's not easy to work with Joe McMillan. Joe says, you're not going crazy, Ryan. He puts a hand on Ryan's shoulder. He says, you're hungry. Look, I've had a tough week. Ryan breathes out sharply through his nose. Joe says, will you join me for dinner? Ryan agrees in the cutest way. He's like, okay, I'll come to dinner with you. Sounds nice. Joe gestures to the board. He says, just take a good look. That's what's next. Ryan looks at it. He grabs his bag. He shakes his head a little bit and he leaves the room. One of the things I love about this scene is like, it's just two guys looking at a corkboard, but somehow at the moment when Joe starts to get a little life and a little energy into him, however they did it, we start getting this feeling of movement and energy, even though they're basically staying within 5 feet of where they were the entire time. I like that there feels like an energy in this scene that had to be manufactured given how tight this space is. So Joe's got the idea now, and Ryan's got it with him. They're on the same page. And poor Ryan, he's like, I don't even know, like, what is happening? All this stuff. I don't know. I don't even know if you like me. It's amazing that Ryan's able to come out and say that stuff now. And Joe's gonna have to have a little bit of a nurturing moment with Ryan here at dinner, because seems like Ryan will go to the ends of the earth for Joe, but Joe needs to treat him a little bit better. And Joe has the bandwidth to do that now that his health scare is over. Okay. The phone rings. Diane is at home. Cam is calling Diane from the Clark house. Diane says, Diane Gould. Cam says, Diane, hi, it's Cameron Howe. Diane has snap off earrings that she takes off. I like that touch, feels very 80s to me. She says, Cameron, what's going on? Cam says, I had a talk with Donna earlier today. I wanted to call and say, I know I've been a little eccentric lately. Diane grabs her a glass of wine. She says, someone once told me that eccentric is just a fancy word for asshole. Kim's not so sure this conversation is going well. But then Diane says, I'm a little eccentric myself, and you have to be if you want to make it as a woman in this business. Cam nods. Thank goodness. Diane says, this routing number thing is really great. Cam says, yeah, okay. I just wanted to call and say thanks for, seeing that mutiny exchange wasn't something we could do on our own, and that it was smart to buy swap meet. And yes, I don't love Doug and Craig, but I totally respect your decision to keep them at the company. Oh, God. Diane says, look, like I told Donna, I'd have paid for them to go away, cost of doing business, but it shows strength that you decided to make it work. Cam freezes. She is confused. Diane says, look, this call is appreciated, but it's unnecessary. It's your company. You don't have to apologize for any decision. In the end, you decide. I mean, it's Diane letting the birds fly off on their own. But a car pulls up at Cam's, probably Donna, pulls up at the Clark house, and the headlights light Cam. So Cam just got this moment of realizing, oh my God, Donna betrayed me. Like, this could have been the way I wanted it. And Donna withheld information from. She made a decision. She went behind my back with Diane. She lied about it. She blamed it on Diane. All of this is hitting Cam at the same time. And Diane's like, Cameron? Because Cameron's paused long enough to have an awkward moment in the conversation. Cam says, yeah, okay, thanks, Diane. I've got to go. Bye. She hangs up the phone. She runs into her room to avoid whoever's coming into the house, probably Donna. And she shuts the door of the room. She's breathing hard. She shuts the light. She crawls into the top bunk. She hugs herself. She turns into sort of a fetal position on her side. She hugs herself in the bed. She is breathing really hard. She looks down sort of towards her pocket. She turns over so she's facing up. She reaches into her pocket. She pulls out a wedding band. She puts it on her ring finger. She smiles while she's crying. And she feels comforted by the wedding band. She's feeling comforted by Tom without Tom actually being here. What a way to end this episode. My goodness. There is feedback later related to Cam and the feelings that she's having. So I want to explore it more there. I'm a little bit concerned about how much comfort, external comfort, Cam is requiring here. This was a thing before in the Cam-Tom relationship. In season 2, we see Cam destroy her room, angry about Joe. Tom comes in, sees her freaking out, and he's going to come in and he's going to give her one of those hugs where she just leans her whole body against him. We have seen Tom be the comfort to Cam before. We've seen her talk her down from panic attacks. Cam looks like she's like mentally hanging on by a thread right now, but she just got married. She's not telling people about it. She didn't tell Donna about it, even when they were on better terms. What is happening for Cam? I worry about Cam, and I worry for Tom that I have to worry about Cam. What is going on? So that's this episode. I mean, goodness, this episode, talk about like the way all the stories in some way connect with each other. I feel like we're playing with some themes in this episode that touch on all of the different scenes that we're seeing. A lot of pain in this episode from just about everybody. A lot of reinterpreting memories Yeah. It's two different people looking at the same thing, feeling differently about it. A lot of that happening here. And I think it's a really interesting one to dive into from a character standpoint. Let's look at the music for this one. Okay, so first we're going to get London Boys by Johnny Thunders. That's a 1978 song. That's when the coders are playing the last letter game at the start of the episode. Then we're going to get a song Nowhere Girl by B Movie from 1982. Donna and Gordon are talking. Donna can't stop bringing up Cam. Then we'll get Crazy Jenny by Raw Meat 78. I think this is a 1978 song. Donna and Gordon are making out. Tom and Cam meet up at the diner. Then for me, this is the most well-known song. The Train in Vain, Stand By Me by The Clash from 1979. This is when Donna and Gordon are dancing at home. Then we'll get Walking Out on Love by the Breakaways from 2009. This is where Donna tells Doug and Craig to start beta testing. One of the things that happens here is there's a lot of times when we're seeing the Mutiny office space and we're hearing very low background music. It's not so much that you can make out what the music is, but that it's just adding a bit of life to the space. So that's one of those songs. And then, of course, a really, really nice musical choice here, New Misery by Cullen Amori from 2016. This is a song that's blaring when Joe had the health scare, but we find out that he's okay and he's standing on the balcony. It's really a beautiful, very Joe-esque song from much later, but Joe's not hearing it in the scene. We are hearing it over the scene. Okay. Favorite quote. You know what? There were a lot of really fun ones. The one that I've chosen as my favorite is not necessarily the most complex, but I'll give you a bunch of honorable mentions that are. So one of the honorable mentions is from Donna. What good is a castle if nobody's in the kingdom? Good point. Got one from Gordon. Was that totally hot sex worth burning the stakes or what? Literally. We've got one from Boz, and this one is like a very emotionally resonant one. I know the first 2,000 miles are easy and the last 20 feet are hard, but you've come all this way, and now here we are. We've got one from Joe. It's always a bad idea to bet against openness. But my favorite quote, and you're just gonna, I don't know what you'll think about this, me picking this as my favorite quote, but it's one from Cam that made me laugh. She says, congratulations, your baby is really cool. Cam doesn't know what to do with babies or what to say about babies. It feels very appropriate to this character, and it just made me laugh. Okay, that's my favorite quote. Let's talk about a little bit of feedback here. Okay, so first, a comment from Amelia Flowers. Hello, Amelia. From 302. Amelia says, I think you hit the nail on the head about when Joe looks at Ryan and looks away in the office. There's no idea right now. Yes, the meeting with Diane's firm is so much better. However, Donna wiping lipstick off always felt weird, as surely after the previous pitch, she wouldn't have put it on. But I do like that it gives Cam the opportunity to say something nice. So Amelia brought in a couple different thoughts, and I wanted to address both of them here. So Joe and Ryan, when Ryan comes to Joe in 302, he sets a meeting for 9 a.m. every single day of the week in Joe's calendar. Joe takes a meeting with Ryan. Ryan makes a pitch to him, except his pitch is just, I want to work with you. And Joe, I think, feels very inspired with Ryan coming in, because it's like, ooh, I can't wait to hear what this guy has to say. What could I potentially be working on here? Joe does not have an idea. Joe is just living the corporate lifestyle when Ryan approaches him, and he's surfing every day, and he's drinking his tea, and he's trying to be all zen, but he's not got an idea that's firing him up. And Ryan comes in with all this energy, and Joe thinks for a minute, maybe there's an idea attached to that energy, and there is not. Ryan comes in and says, I'm here to work with you. And Joe's like, on what? And so I think at the point in that as we're seeing how this has been playing out, it reinforces the theory that I came to in that episode of like, Joe wanted to hear out the idea, but then Ryan didn't have an idea. So Joe was not quite as inspired by that. He's not used to working with people who have that much energy, but don't have an idea of their own that they're ready to execute. So now we get a little bit further in and we see that Joe and Ryan have found this balance. Ryan is sort of the researcher bringing the raw materials to Joe. He's sort of his muse, but he's sort of just bringing the raw materials to Joe. Some assembly is required for Joe with Ryan. Joe needs to lead Ryan down the path himself, but once he does that, they can be on the same page. We're starting to see that at the end of this episode. So I like that we're seeing that progression here. And to Amelia's other point, where in the second meeting after Diane and Cam had that terrible dinner with Mac and Tim, and Tim comments about the red lipstick. In the very next pitch that Diane and Cam are about to go to, which ends up being with Diane, in the very next pitch that Donna and Cam are about to go into, which ends up being with Diane's firm, Donna had been wearing lipstick and she's wiping it off, and Cam's like, "You're fine." And so I brought that back up again here because, first of all, Amelia asked the question about it. It's like, why would Donna put on lipstick to begin with? I think that Donna put on a lighter shade of lipstick. I don't think it was the bright red, because when she wipes it away, it doesn't leave a bright red residue. So I think she had already made a choice to be more muted. And then she even decides against that. She second guesses that and she wipes the lipstick off. Cam in that moment is her backup. She's supportive of her. She's like, "You're good." She gives her that affirmation. She gives her that encouragement. And in this episode, Cam needs that encouragement. You know, she's the one who needs the support. She's having a rough day. She's had a rough trip to Texas, or was it a good trip to Texas? But she's needing a little bit of encouragement and support, and Donna sees that and she's prepared to give it. So there is sort of a, you know, when you're down, I lift you up, when you're down, I lift you up kind of thing happening with them. If they're both on the same page at the same time, particularly if they're both at odds or if they're both feeling low, that's not a great place for that partnership to work from. But so far they've been able to do this sort of balancing act. Okay. Some comments I really wanted to dig into from Frackin' Toaster Lover. Yeah, we've got some Boz Cam stuff and some just Cam stuff here. It's really good. The timing on this is good. So regarding season 2, episode 5, Frackin' Toaster Lover says, "And poor Boz getting the chair fixed and then having Cam fly off the handle at him even for that. Not that the chair was the real reason, of course. I feel like it was a mix of her feeling threatened and a fear of losing Mutiny and her independence, and a delayed reaction to Boz telling her straight up that Joe's decision at Comdex was a good one from a business standpoint, and her anger at him throwing Chet out of the network, which feels like what a businessman at Cardiff would do and reminds her of how she and her work were pushed out for commercial reasons by Joe and Gordon." So, you know, it's kind of fraught, this relationship between Boz and Cam, because yes, there's that father-daughter element to it, that feeling of that. But, you know, in that episode, Boz steps in and tries to do all these things to make Cam's life better and fix situations for her. And she tends to feel very threatened when people don't involve her in decisions, when people just go ahead and do things without her choosing. And we're seeing that come back here in this episode. We're seeing it not only with how she is with Donna and, you know, the Doug and Craig doing the work that she wants to do, but we're also seeing it in the car with Boz and Cam. She's like, "Don't you make me do this. Don't you tell me what to do. Don't you open the car door for me. No, no, no." She wants to make her own decisions, even if that's her deciding not to talk to her mom and get the bike. So it's all kind of coming back here. But let's get into a little bit more with Cam. Season 2, episode 3. This comment seems relevant again. There's a bunch of context of this episode in the middle, but I want to share all of this comment because it just feels like this is the time. Although this episode gives everyone something to do, and Boz has quite a substantial storyline in particular, I mostly always think of this as the episode where we see Cameron's first big emotional breakdown in season 2, giving Mackenzie an opportunity to display her incredible acting chops. It's also the second time in the show we see her have a full-blown anxiety attack. Unsurprisingly, since it's the 1980s, no one ever acknowledges it, but she seems to have an anxiety disorder. We've already had hints in the first 2 episodes of how traumatic her experience in Cardiff has ended up being for her and how much she is reeling from her relationship with Joe. But here, it's like everything has conspired to remind her of those painful moments and put her in a state of panic, fear of losing everything she has, of something like stability she has achieved. First, the sudden malware attack, the initial confusion about what's happening, and then the first time she hears Joe's voice after all this time. I love that scene. Gordon being involved also reminds her of the time at Cardiff, but I imagine it must have been a relief that at least it was not some kind of dastardly plot designed by Joe, which is something that seems likely in Cameron's mind. We see her vent her frustration and anger at Gordon for the time in Cardiff for the first time here, but he's only the secondary villain in her mind. Donna may have consistently negative and somewhat reductive takes on Joe's personality and motivations, but Cameron goes into extremes with the way she thinks about him. At this point, she seems to have built him up in her mind as a sort of terrifying figure who's going to ruin her life if he ever comes close to her again. Even her game, Parallax, appears to feature an android sorcerer antagonist who is brilliant and cunning. And in 205, she seems to see him as a figure as terrifying as the Terminator, another of the many Joe robot comparisons. But as we learn in this episode, where we learn more about the plot of the game, to beat him, you need to go back and face him and break an egg at his chest to make him human again. And Cam's not ready for that yet. However, we see that Cam has been losing her creative spark and just rehashing her old work. Maybe that's exactly because she had relative stability by her standards lately, and her emotions have been somewhat muted. Joe's return to her life brings out a lot of strong emotions and trauma in dramatic ways, especially as it's tied to her fears of losing Mutiny, of her life falling apart. But maybe that's exactly what she needed to get that drive and creativity back. It's also not helping that other coders at Mutiny have not been challenging her enough. She said in 201 she didn't want to be the boss, but she's acting like one. The scene where she asked the coders for game ideas feels similar to the 110 scene of Joe asking the coders at Cardiff to come up with ideas for a killer app. And the coders are definitely seeing her as one, with the way that they are all afraid to criticize her work, except for Tom, which is definitely one of the main reasons why she's drawn to him. Tom certainly plays somewhat of a season 1 Cameron role to Cam's Joe, an ambitious, talented coder who's very confident and outspoken and doesn't hesitate to challenge her and call her out. This episode does a good job showing why Cam would want to start a relationship with Tom and see that relationship as a good one, especially when he is able to calm her down during her panic attack by reminding her of her own earlier, stronger work. Okay, so there's a lot of details in there that are not necessarily relevant to this episode, but it's such good thoughts from Frack and Toaster Lover that I wanted to bring it all in. But I think this idea, I've been waiting for the moment where we could get back to Cam panicking about things to bring this back in, because when I was worried that there wouldn't be a relevant episode to bring this back to, because it was like, when I think about her panic attacks, I think about the episode on the roof in season 1, that was 104, I think it was. I think about the panic attack she had that Tom calmed her down from in 203, that Frack and Toaster Lover was referencing here. But they don't always end up this on the nose. But in this episode, she has a lot of moments where she's like breathing really like she's trying to catch her breath. You can see it in her eyes that she's starting to feel anxious about things. When people push her, she's like really protecting herself, backing herself into a corner, pushing back. The end of this episode, her curling up on that bed, hugging herself, and then grabbing the ring that Tom gave her and putting it on her finger, and she's crying and smiling at the same time, and that ring is calming her down. It's like, once again, Tom is calming her from a panic attack. She's not all the way there, but it's like she needs external comfort. I really, like, I think it's so interesting that there's not probably a lot of language in the 80s for any of this. If there is, it hasn't been introduced to Cam. And but she definitely deals with anxiety, and there are things she could be doing about it if she only knew, but she doesn't have the tools. She does not have the language or the techniques, and she leans on the only people that she can trust in a given moment to calm her down. And in a situation where she has to repair the trust, she will repair it to get the comfort. So I think this is a really important part of her character. She obviously spent a lot of time on her own as a kid trying to survive on her own, probably survive from what was happening with her parents. She didn't have people that she could really lean on. She had to learn how to self-soothe. But now that she's an adult and she has some people who she can trust, she needs to make sure she's on a good page with them before she leans on them. And so she does that. And it can come off like she's using them. It comes off that way to me. It comes off very codependent at times. And I feel like that's the foot she's starting out on with Tom, with what I just saw. So I don't know. I think this is a really interesting thing to dive into, and one that's not really addressed head on in the show, but you see it come out through symptoms. Okay, everybody. It's time for thoughts from Evan the Stray. Okay, for this episode, Evan says, Gordon's gory graphics game plan. Blood squirting from the necks of disreputable traders' avatars feels uncharacteristically dark for Gordon. Might be struggles with his illness tend to make darker imagery top of mind. Yeah, I like the idea though. I don't know how Carl and Bodhi didn't already think of the blood spurting out of the neck. Cam on credit cards intensity is displayed with Donna Cam stalemate. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just another example of how they butt heads in terms of how they do business, and it's a level of risk aversion that's not lined up for them. There's a slightly modified theme song for this episode. Let's see if it continues forward on the other episodes. Yeah, it started differently. I think it gets to the same place, but it started differently. I noticed that too. Cameron is handed the baby and she slightly winces and grimaces. The discomfort is amusing to me. Yeah, she does not want this baby in her hands. No, siree. Ryan looks around. Why is he so curious? Insecurity abounds. I mean, Joe's a hard guy to know what he's really thinking, but especially this particular week, I think he's leaving Ryan guessing. I think that Joe is so accustomed to dealing with our main cast, like those main characters are so good at just coming at you with all of their thoughts. And Ryan needs more assurance, which Joe is not used to dealing with. Cameron in a phone booth on the outskirts of Dallas. The shot feels like she's been watched by thin, judging old men and women disguised as telephone poles. The surroundings almost feel like they're creating and amplifying a general vulnerability to her being here in Texas. I mean, the amount of vulnerability for Cam in this episode. Top work from everybody, including Mackenzie Davis. Tom and Cameron at Mammy's Kitchen are like two people with bound wrists behind their backs reaching out for each other. The air is so heavy with the weight of what either really wants to say that I'm almost pleading pinochle. Is Tom wondering what would happen if he exercised 100% transparency here? Would that actually be irresponsible? Would it scare Cameron away? Maybe if she didn't feel the same way, but is that even important? Are people's egos too fragile to handle rejection even when it's polite? What if we stripped away the ego? I do. Really good points here. I do think Tom is trying to assess whether she can handle his thoughts, and I think he's assessing that she can't, and I think he's not wrong. I think Cam started this conversation and wasn't prepared to have it, but she goes back to him obviously ready to have it. We don't get to see what happens in that several days they spend together. But it was a first step, so I'll give it, I gotta give that to them. This is supposedly part of the premise behind those embarking on ayahuasca retreats, the ego death. Advocates say it allows for honest communication of pure emotion and reveals deeply profound insights to help overcome debilitating trauma. But does that actually deprive someone from the experience of learning how to get there on their own versus using a shortcut or end around hallucinogen to do the heavy lifting? This is my tangent and wondering if it could help Cam. I wish Cam had some sort of tools to deal with how she feels that didn't require her so leaning on other people to get there. Being comforted is fine, but I also think it's her tool. And it's hard for people to sustain that. Dancing Gordon, pretty funny. However, the song lyrics playing are relatively melancholy. Nevertheless, it sounds like Gordon and Donna had a solid collegiate day. And in the shimmer of postcoital bliss and marijuana, Gordon wrestles a frown from a smile because he apparently believes he's engaging in the definition of insanity. But is it Donna, the career, or both? Great question. I love that way of interpreting this. Maybe it's not camping that's insanity. Maybe it's their relationship that's insanity. Poor Boz, he probably feels like he can't get anything right with his loved ones. I know. I mean, he's made choices, and some of them are coming to roost right now. And you know, it happens. There are people on the other side of those choices. The beer bottle cap reminds Gordon that he and Donna are on different frequencies / wavelengths and maybe always have been. How appropriate he should go get some ham radio frequency time in instead of getting delicious breakfast with an imperfect but awesome, chips on both sides of the board, Donna, with whom he just had an amazing connection the day before. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Gordon, Donna is left feeling hollow. Yeah. Beautifully said. I mean, I love that it's like their greatest connection and then it's like almost worse for them the next day because of that. Similar to Joe's occasional little boy face, Cameron displays the equivalent to Tom when she arrives at his home, but admittedly hers looks cuter and sweeter. Yeah, so true. Cam has a little girl face. Donna visually scans Mutiny and is possibly feeling she's unneeded as earlier at home. It feels like she's further latching onto Mutiny as her baby because she can at least make that need her. I'm making an inference there's some percentage of emotional transference between mothering and protecting Mutiny and what occurred at the clinic in Ted Broad 36. And Donna is feeling the need to protect, so she moves accordingly. I mean, she has a job to do. And they're getting a lot of outreach about this. So there's pressure happening, external that's real external pressure. How long do you wait for Cam? Joe's medical call he received, he appears very happy. As I previously alluded to, I had a stepbrother who was on the other side of that metaphorical coin. I can only imagine how that felt, especially in your mid-30s. And now my mind goes to the quite good and catchy song, The Impression That I Get by the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. The closest I personally came to that was bone marrow testing a few years ago. Damn, that procedure hurts. I'll let that sum up this scene. Yeah, I don't really have a real frame of reference for it, but I can feel what's happening in this scene and the just sort of the oppression of that threat that it's and the way it's lifted. I can feel that from Lee Pace. Both Boz and Donna are visually irritated at seeing the untimely arrival of Cam. I see the pros and cons of both credit card and ACH transactions, though initially it seems that ACH is a better business decision. Following a semi-heated confrontation with Donna, Cam communicates to her the tremendous impact and value Donna has made in her life. It's beautiful to hear and see that transparency from Cam. I'm unsure how exactly to interpret the hug between the two. The speed with which Donna pulls Cameron into her feels a bit like one of a parent-child or dominant-subordinate relationship. The cynic in my head says Judas. Yeah, I mean, Cam doesn't even know yet that Donna had just been betraying her. I mean, for me, it's the Cam with her arms down situation. Cam doesn't know how to hug back. She wants to receive a hug. So yeah, there's definitely something to that. And whether that's parent-child or dominant subordinate, I think you could be giving something back even in those dynamics. Diane unknowingly reveals to Cameron Donna's deceit, and certainly a different lens to her having Cam's back. While Donna might have made the decision to stimulate growth in Cam, it may also have been components of not wanting to appear that she's unable to function as a de facto managing partner and or prove they're able to persevere and succeed through adversity. Cam is struck with shock, betrayal, and quickly conceals herself in her room in darkness upon hearing Donna's distant voice. The onset of a panic attack appears imminent. She climbs to her bunk and comforts herself with a full embrace. She turns to thoughts of Tom for further comfort and remembers her wedding ring and wears it as a virtual embrace from him. What a heavy and beautiful series of deep emotions we see Cam move through in 60 seconds. I mean, the way this season is giving us dialogueless, really informative, great moments. They trusted their actors to communicate without words, which is not an easy thing to do, I would imagine, but they do it. And Evan continues, wow, Mackenzie Davis is masterful here. She pulled on my heartstrings quite hard in this scene, especially at the point when she embraces herself. That was breaking my freaking heart. So well done. Agreed. When you put this type of stuff in a script and you say, Mackenzie Davis hugs herself for, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, however long it was going to play out, you have to trust that the actor can convey all this without putting dialogue in. And if you can, you probably get it done way more effectively. And it's just amazing. All of the different times in this episode where we see, and that we've been seeing previously to this episode, where people are communicating a lot with no words. Melting quotes. Number 6, our users want the police to get back together, but Sting's not interested. That's Cam's quote, Cam quote. Number 5, one user just emailed me thanking Mutiny for reviving the efficiency and modernity of the barter system, from Craig. He signed it Methuselah, from Doug. LOL. Okay, this compound quote, what I'm going to call it, is funny. Yeah. Number 4, I'm not sure I've got another next in me. You should know that. That's a Joe quote. Another one from Joe is number 3. This city, I can't decide if it's beautiful or horrifying. My mom came out here. She died here. Nothing lasts in this place. Number 2 is from Boz. People don't make mistakes because they don't love you, Cameron. They make mistakes because they do. And Evan also had a number 1 from Cam, but a different one. He said that you're the best thing that ever happened to me, and it's true. And not because he said it or anything, just you anchor me. And that, my friends, is season 3, episode 5, Yerba Buena. So much good character stuff here. It was very character driven, not necessarily plot driven, but we get a lot of information and a lot to talk about. So I would love to get your thoughts on this episode. And next time we're going to get into 306. So go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire, everybody.